Turning it down. Oh, how loud do you listen to music, Christopher? Jeez. Hi, everybody. Okay, it is Tuesday, and you know what that means. It's the day after Monday. Okay, so I have got to turn the light on. All right, welcome. So let's do some housekeeping. Hey, if it's your first time here, we've got a standard thing here. Anybody that suggests me a one-page comic idea, it doesn't matter how outlandish it is. Yesterday's suggestion is 3 words: unicorn, mermaid, fence. And so the page that's on the screen right now is what I did from 3 words. But people also make suggestions like, I'll give you some. A child making a decision at a McDonald's electronic kiosk. Cat curling down the ice. You know, a magic car that crashes into anything that looks like a bullseye. So, there's lots of different ways you can do suggestions. But if you've got one in mind, feel free to put it in the chat or put it in the comments for the video if this is after the live stream is over. Or put it in someplace on, social media somewhere. Okay, this might be one of my okay, this is brand new to me. Runcie fans? Is this a thing? Hi, Chris. Welcome aboard. That's pretty good, frankly. I like Runcie fans. Runcie fans. Good afternoon, by the way, Chris. Today's an exciting day because I have a friend coming by today, and he's going to hang out. I'm going to do a really long stream today. And I'm all set up. I got juices nearby and things to keep my blood sugar in the right position. But my friend D.S. Barrick is coming by today, and he's going to talk about his new book. I put a post out earlier today that has the image of the cover for it. What? And, I've got his 2 of his previous books, Lucky Unlucky, that he did with Scott McDougall and Aaron Elston. And then he's got a previous book that he's already done, Naomi Thatcher. Hot Gossip. Sixth Sense of Melody is a lyric from a Rheostatic song. And I guessed it right today. And apparently people haven't picked up on that. That's a sad thing, because the Rheostatics, if you haven't listened to them, listen to the Rheostatics. They are lovely. In fact, today's musical choice is the Rheostatics. What am I missing? I'm missing stuff in the conversation. I'm sorry for that. My fan base apparently are called Runcie fans. Oh, no. Okay, we're making T-shirts. No. Okay, so let's do some housekeeping. I can't slide today because I've given Dan my good chair when he comes to visit. So I'm in a smaller chair, which is probably why you got more of me in the screen. All right, and I apologize for that. Okay, so I've got the originals to show you, but this is yesterday's page built on 3 one-word prompts from Dee Willingham's prompt bag that she showcases on her stream. Please go and check out Dee Dee's stream. Oh, jeez. Boy, oh boy, you speak her name and she appears. Hi, Dee Dee. Today's page that I'm posting is based on the 3 words from the prompt bag, which are unicorn, mermaid, and fence. And the idea for the reverse mermaid came from Joshua Kimball. So you should do a reverse mermaid. I'm in. That's the big thinking process that went on for me. Okay, that sounds good. Boy, I'm easy to talk into stuff. That's not good to tell everybody. Okay, I am going to turn off my Rheostatics because it's a little bit loud. And my head's getting hot. All right, so this was a fun one to do. It's been a good week so far, a good productive week. And Monday's page was Resurrected for the Holidays, the Elvis page. So this was a lot of fun. I am trying all kinds of different things right now with layers, and I'm having a ball. But you really got to plot and think a lot when you're doing these layers. And, make sure that little things like for this unicorn's horn in the top left panel to be sticking out into the next panel, you have to make sure the way that you layer all your panels together so that that horn can be prominent, and just assembling parts of things like the mermaid down at the bottom screaming. And then, of course, trying different things out, with lettering and trying to put in parentheses. Like what I should have put was one statement that says translated from fish or something like that. But I didn't, so I'm just having a ball trying different things right now. Let me see. Oh, I got questions. Are your colors digital? Not entirely. So I'll show you in a second. Just give me 1 sec. I'll switch up some cameras here. Blink. Okay, so this is the original images from the page. And so what I'll do is I'll draw, paint, mixed media, whatever, a lot of the elements. And then I'll stitch those together and change sizes and adjust perspectives, even flip the horizontal on them or the like. You can, clearly I'm not even paying attention to which side of the page is up when I'm working. But, this one's sideways. Hello. But the fish character here was layered over top of the rocks. It saves me from having to do the fiddly bits of trying to draw the rocks around the fish. But so this is red ballpoint pen with watercolors and a white paint pen. I think that's it. No, maybe some black pencil crayon as well. But that's about it. That's all that is on this page. And yeah, a lot of fun. So the rest of it, I'll go back to the digital for a sec. So after having seen those, the rest of it, like things like the circle in the background here, that's artificial. So the idea here is that this shape between the horse's legs in the first panel, we zoom in on, reduce that out into a flat silhouette color, because I want your focus on that fence area and the legs popping up and kicking about in the air. So, it's just some silly fun. At the end of the day, anything that we're creating, anything that we're producing should be silly fun, right? Right, Chris? Yeah. And yet, despite my silly fun time, I am constantly reevaluating and thinking things through on process. Hey, everybody, it's Janet. Hi, Janet. If anybody, did I miss anybody saying hi to anybody when they came in? If I did, I apologize. Anybody that's watching, feel free to jump in. Feel free to throw in your nickel into the conversation. I say nickel because of inflation. It used to be 2 cents. All right, so this is yesterday's page. The page before was Elvis Resurrected for the Holidays. So clearly, I have a silly bent. That's the way I'm explaining it. Isn't that right, Corbin? Corbin agrees. So, yeah. Let's get this party started. All right, so I've got a couple of suggestions on the docket for today. Now, Dan, or D.S. Barrick, is going to join us around 3:30, and I will be doing an extended stream to chat with him about his books and his upcoming book. So brace yourself. It's going to be a long one. Not that I expect people to stay the entire time. That's ridiculous. But I got a suggestion from Joshua Kemba that came in, horses and hearses. So, and of course, my brain went off immediately as soon as he said that, and probably not what he was thinking. So that'll be one coming up that we're going to have some fun with. Getting a lot of horses requests lately. That's fun. What else we got? If I wrote these in some semblance of an order instead of just haphazard all over paper, that would be a good thing. So mermaid unicorn fence is done. Checking it off the list. Mike has suggested, or I'm sorry, anonymous. He's so anonymous, he says it twice. Anonymous. A page about an aspiring paperback writer like the song. I believe that's by the Beatles. Okay. Frankly, I started calling everybody Runcie fans. I don't know. Silly bent, is that what I call it? Well, it's, in public. But yeah. Okay, so we got a couple things to roll from. I have nothing specifically that I'm I'll do that one. If I make sure I'm not missing anything or anything's left over. Cause and effect is the only one from the previous pages. But yeah, a page about an aspiring paperback writer or horses in hearses. People can feel fully free to vote on those, whichever one you want me to do, because I'm keen either way. Keen as a jelly bean. Making sure I didn't miss anything else. Money Changer, just did that. Richard Simmons, I remember that one. Yeah, we've been getting some really great ideas in, and this is an awful lot of fun that people are throwing these at me. Oh, we got a vote in for horses and hearses from Frankly Mapley. That's his name. It's his Canadian name. His American name is Francisco Salazar, but his Canadian name is Frankly Mapley. We're gonna induct him into Canada. We're gonna get him to become a Canadian citizen as soon as Frankly learns how to sing all the lyrics of the Battle of Wendell Clark. And as soon as he can sing all the lyrics of the Battle of Wendell Clark, he's allowed to start wearing a toque around, which apparently is a Canadian look, even though it's actually just because my head is cold. Okay, we're gonna do horses and hearses, I guess. You know what? No, let's switch directions. Let's do the page about an aspiring paperback writer. I got no Post-its nearby. An aspiring paperback writer. Is that it? Like a page about them. A page about. That's what I'm missing. Like the song. Okay. Hey, Philip's joined us. Hi, Philip. Hi, Rachel. Look at this. Oh, my goodness. Maniacs. You're all maniacs. Welcome aboard. Hi, Philip. Hello, Rachel. I know I did that backwards. Okay. So, nice, Philip. Can't get to the craft table. All right. Okay, so we're going to do this one, I think. Sorry, Frankly. This one I will be doing tomorrow. How's that? That sounds like a fair deal. All right. So at one point today, I'll do a be right back sign for 5 minutes while I go and meet DS at the door when he comes by at 3:30 to join in the stream. But until then, you're stuck with this lonesome cowboy. So I hope you're okay with that. All right. Okay. So I've got a couple of things. This is my theme this week. I started deciding some ideas about the theme. And what I mean by that is, you see a lot of these conversations that people have on streams or they have in their videos and 5 ways you can do this, or six secrets to controlling the universe, or 6 secrets to controlling the universe. There's all kinds of this stuff out there, and which is all well and good. But what do you talk about anymore? There's so much of this jazz, and I don't want to do the same thing. Frankly is asking, what was that song? The Battle of the Ballad. It's the Ballad of Wendell Clark. And if you don't know who Wendell Clark is, frankly, you don't get to be a Canadian. All right. Anyways, there's so many of these things. There's so many of these advisory posts and streams about how to get rich quick with, without having to wait for loved ones to pass, like whatever nonsense. And I don't know. I don't have input on that. All I can talk about is, where my headspace is on things. And this is what we're doing, by the way, before I forget. Did I say this already? Page about an aspiring paperback writer like the song. So with that in mind, there's different things about the journey that I think that we can chat about, because I think that there's an open congress of ideas, because everybody's journey is different. And I think that the affordance of opportunity for it to be a conversation as opposed to me running off on some tirade is a better way to go in my head, because nobody just wants to listen to me blathering on about, let me tell you how the world works. That's boring. So how do we engage in that perspective that each of us have, rather than just listening to somebody stand on a pulpit? My thoughts, anyways, along those lines for this week is reality. What, Chris? You? Yeah. Oh, hello, Raul. Welcome aboard. Have I caught everybody? I think we've got everybody. I really feel I'm quite taken by the fact that you guys are tuning in and watching this kooky kid do his thing. What I mean by reality is that yesterday I talked about being realistic about your artistic journey. And I got a little bit of feedback on that. I got a couple of direct messages on that, and people saying that, do you think I should this? And which is kind of not the point, but the idea of, do I think that you should do a thing, was kind of counterintuitive to the idea of, better than anybody else the reality of what it is that you need to do creatively. And so with that in mind, asking people for feedback on stuff is one thing, but basing your decisions on how you go on your creative journey on others' input is going to constantly steer the course of your journey in ways that you might not normally take. Trying different things and exploring different avenues and trying to facilitate different options and directions in how to create things and how to do stuff is fine. I mean, I'm all about experimentation, clearly. But at the same time, having an idea or an understanding of what it is that you want to do and who it is that you're wanting to be in your creative journey is kind of what we were trying to get to the bottom of yesterday. And I think we did. I think we had some good thoughts and some good insights on it. And I'm really, really thankful for all the interaction on that one. What I'm referring to today in the top of frankly, you have to memorize that song. You can't just start shouting lyrics. It's not how this works. Memorize it. Anyways, we're converting Frankly into a Canadian, or we're going to make him a full-blown knucklehead. So my idea today is, it takes that a little bit further about, the idea of looking at the world around us and figuring out how to draw that it sounds pretty straightforward. It just sounds like, oh, here's it, break everything down into cubes. That's not what I mean. What I mean by that is, and if anybody has any questions about how to draw a thing, I will I'll walk through that with you. I don't mind sidestepping at all. But what I'm referring to specifically is, I think there's a healthy and an important thing to consider, that there's an awful lot of people that are drawing stories and drawing books and from supplied images. And what I mean by supplied images is my entire interpretive way, and I'm using an example, not me specifically, there's a great tendency for people to take supplied images and be beholden to them. And there's so many different ways that we can break that mold. And by the way, I've been seeing tons of examples of this on a number of different streams, and that people are taking these collaging images, but not just taking the specific images themselves, but they're putting together a whole bunch of elements, and they're adding textuality to it, and really building on and creating new things. I'm not referring to that. I'm not, when I'm talking about supplied images, because what I'm talking about is I want to draw this specific thing that everybody sort of draws and puts into their stories, and easily that could be contextualized as a superhero book, right? You got your big city scene, you got your Spider-Man swinging through it, or your Batman swinging through it with his spider powers, or however it works. And a lot of people will look towards what other people have done, what other executions already exist on these projects, and try to emulate those. And instead of looking at the actual world, looking at the actual city environments, looking at the world around you, trying to take inspiration from real life things and to play with those. It's important. It's important of engaging that reality in the work, right? But but at the same time, it's important to I'm going to leave that up there with no explanation, by the way. The challenge with those things is you're not speaking. You're not talking about looking at the world. You're not looking at the world around you when you're reiterating somebody else's pre-existing vision. And Raul is saying that the new Spider-Man movie trailer is amazing. Yes, it is. But I would argue that maybe the new Spider-Verse movies might be the first time that the larger industry is trying to interpret superhero dynamics in a new way. I would argue and say that they're trying it differently by, pulling from all kinds of different avenues in order to create these projects. But at the end of the day, it's still largely based on a pre-existing thing. A lot of these projects, but the new Spider-Verse thing might be the projects might be the most exciting thing that Marvel has done to me, and it's largely because of breaking whole new avenues for interpretation in animation and really pushing the envelope on what's expected. So, there you go. All right. Still waiting for a Captain Canuck movie? You're going to wait until the cows come home, pal. I do not foresee that happening, period. And I'm friends with Richard Comley. He's a really good friend of mine, the creator of Captain Canuck. But there's so much paperwork to have to go through to make a superhero film. And in Canada, we don't have the American patriotism. So nobody's clamoring in Canada for our Captain Canuck film. So you might be waiting some time for that. It's sweet that you think about it, though. So the idea here is that when you're looking at the world and you're looking at the way that you're drawing and the way that you're working, what can you do with your approach to whatever your creativity is? If it's art, if it's photography, if it's whatever it is, okay? I try to come up with all these examples every time, but I'm talking about art in general. And any creative expression is going to be yours, automatically. It's going to be you're seeing the world and you're seeing things from the perspective that you look at the world and you see things. And that's a gift, right? Because nobody else is going to see things exactly the same way that you are. And that's the important part. That's the secret sauce to your artwork. That's what nobody else can do. But we need to embrace that. I think that if there's any path for yourself that's considering having this unique identity and going out into the world and making a mark, in the sense that this is my authentic me and nobody else does exactly what I do. There's a great necessity of experimentation in that. There's a great necessity of really doing something out in left field, which is great, but that's an awful lot of time and effort to go about that. But your interpretation of whatever elements that you're looking at, whatever you're seeing in the world, is automatically going to be authentically yours because it's done by your hand in the way that you address images and put them together. But at the same time, when you're looking at the world and you're considering how to draw it, you're considering how to put together those images, I always advocate that people consider that world and how they see it, and what they want to speak to about it, and what they want. When I'm drawing it's something as basic as when you're drawing a car or a horse or an airplane or a fish or a desk or whatever random thing. The context of those things and the visual approach, that visual language that you're going to create those things from, comes from here more than it comes from the supplied thing. And the more that we overly rely on a supplied thing without thinking up here, the more it's just going to look like, well, to use the superheroes, another Spider-Man. The more that Hollywood movies keep regurgitating, the same pastiche format for making films. How many times can you watch Tom Cruise run up a side of a building or whatever else, right? And now, granted, there's a lot of people that like watching Tom Cruise run. That's his whole shtick. But, I don't understand, the doing it over and over and over and over again. Whereas he has a great opportunity creatively and the affordance of opportunity and the accommodation to do whatever he wants and to do something that just pushes boundaries or interprets things in a new way. Not just the new fancy special effect or the cooler explosion and things like that. So, what is this? Frank's talking about Captain Canuck. Rachel thinks I'm Captain Canuck. No. Although I think he's my height. Web series. I didn't even know there was a web series, frankly. The Mummy is an amazing Tom Cruise movie. Disagree. But sorry. I think we have very different tastes, Ravel. I want to see well, actually, you know what? I'll agree with that rule. It's an amazing Tom Cruise movie. But I want to see you doing what you do, and I want to see you interpreting in the way that you do. I don't look for people drawing a car so it looks exactly like a car. I don't look for people drawing whatever it is to look like a photograph. That's not going inside your head. That's not pursuing the visual elements that you've got inside there, and then the way that you're seeing the world and working from your own pencil, paintbrush, whatever it is that you're working from. When you're doing a film, I like those unique visions. I like those authentic, weird things that people do. There was a TV show, Haunting of Hill House, done by a guy. And it's only at the end of the whole thing do you realize that there are like 100 ghosts in this television series of 8 episodes. There's like 100 ghosts, and they're constantly in the background of shots, and you don't even realize it. That the environment is entirely the people are entirely surrounded in ghosts. I like that. I like that level of depth to it. I like it's the same way as I don't find Stephen King very interesting. His early books were good, and then he keeps writing. But to see the adaptations by Mike Darabont, I mean, Misery might be one of the greatest films ever made. Kathy Bates is an absolute legend as an actress, But there's a new series by the same guy that did Haunting a Hill House called Midnight Mass, and both of those are on Netflix, by the way, if you need to check them out. Hi, buddy. And there's a scene in there by the actor who portrays the priest in a small fishing village on an island. the pathos of his acting is so authentic and unique that it really doesn't fit. The level of it really doesn't fit the project in and of itself. Like, it just sort of elevates the whole thing. It's acting on such a different level than a lot of good performances, but a lot of performances that just aren't on the same, scale. So you can find things and you can find projects that have authentic and individual ways of expressing themselves, even though in those two examples that I've given, Haunting on Hill House is a remake 3 times over. Midnight Mass is a genre film, and genre films tend to be repeated. You're not climbing up, so quit trying to climb my leg. Talking to Corbin, nobody else. Anyways, I'm missing some stuff, and I apologize for that. Rachel says, my childhood scary movie was Abbott and Costello Meets the Mummy. That was scary. It actually was a scary film. That it makes you go back and watch it again. Yeah. Classic films are hard to replicate. They really are. 13 Ghosts, is that the one with the house with the sliding walls? That movie is terrifying. Terrifying. Raul says the demon on Midnight Mass is amazing. Well, don't spoil it, Raul. Phil just dumped Netflix. Yeah. Check it out if you can find it. Do I like the new Evil Dead trailer? I haven't seen it. The original 13 Ghosts. Yeah, that's a scary one too. The black and white films, there's something about those because of the artificiality of the environment and the nature of it. Like, even if you can sit down and not have to be, it depends, because I'm going to say this and it's going to be counterintuitive to some, because a modern film going audience, they want the shiny bells and whistles, and that's the unfortunate truth. But if you can forego all that, and if you can allow yourself to just engage in just the contextual reality of a black and white film, there are so many amazing films that are out there, right? That are just, I'm a huge fan of crime noir, and I'm a huge fan of Alfred Hitchcock's work. And, and so when we switch to color, I like 1960s color. I like the graininess of it and the saturated values of all those colors in that. There's so many fantastic things like that. But if you look at film today, we're missing a lot of that stuff. We're missing creatively a lot of the individual and unique voices that we need. The guy who did Last Jedi, Rian Johnson, I think is his name. I'll move your chair closer. Will that keep you from driving me nuts? Rainn Wilson did a film called Brick, and he did a couple of films before he did The Last Jedi Star Wars movie. I like The Last Jedi, right? I think that's the last good Star Wars film made, and may well be. And the last film that they put out was a pointless endeavor. But he did something different and unexpected. And with his writing and with his directing, some of his directions were very different takes than there had been previously in those kind of genre films. But his unique films, the ones that he was doing aside from that, like Brick and I'm going to hate myself for the rest of the day because I cannot remember. Knives Out. Thank you, Brain. Knives Out. Those are some of the greatest films, because he's referring back to black and whites. He's referring back to 1970s films and 60s films and those early saturated value color genre pieces that are relatively just theater pieces, stage pieces that are put in front of a camera. And that's why it comes off as so unique and authentic, is because he's looking back to the things that he studied. I don't like the big blockbuster things for anything more than, that was a fun diversion. I was afraid of the Puppet Master when I was little. Yeah, I'm sorry, I never saw those. Don't like puppets. I really can't stand mannequins. I can't stand them. That's, other people say it's clowns. I'll punch a clown, but I'm not going near a mannequin. Some of the Hitchcock movies were genius. I think a majority of them were genius, personally, but He really knew how to grab an audience. If you have an opportunity, Rear Window is my favorite Hitchcock film. Rear Window is my absolute tops favorite Hitchcock movie. Nothing compares to it. If you look up online, you will hear, there's things that Hitchcock would say about the suspension of the moment. If you have somebody, if you put a bomb under a table and have two people sitting at the table and talking while this bomb is ticking underneath, and you keep cutting back to the bomb and cutting back to the conversation and cutting back to the, and building up the intensity as that clock on the bomb clicks closer and closer to the time it's going to go off. You build this intensity, you build this suspense in the viewing audience. And what's going to happen is somebody going to, right? As opposed to what a lot of movies are now, which is jump scares and nonsense and referentiality as opposed to story. It's a challenging thing, but Hitchcock was an absolute master of it. I mean, what's really crazy about The Birds is, as an example, is at one point somebody's trying to call. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that is the most brave career a person could have. The person who dressed mannequins every day. My goodness, Dee Dee. Minimal budgets, absolute minimal budgets for a lot of really good movies. But when you look at a lot of these films today, it's more about the audacity. It's more about the ostentatiousness. Raul, I'm not trying to pick on you. I hate The Glass Onion. I don't like that film at all. And it's because he's taken the same motif that he had in Knives Out, and he's realized that, I got to try that again. And that's not good. He's sure he's trying to replicate his own thing, but Glass Onion is just this. There's no characters that you in any way, shape, or form look at with any sort of value judgment system as being good people. It's just a morally gray, morally contrived group of individuals. And so honestly, I felt nothing for any of the characters and any threat to them. So it kind of dismisses that's just my perspective, but opinions, who cares? Yeah, it's hard, when we're being declarative about what is good, what is bad, is because somebody across the table is always going to look at you and go, nope, right? I hate mannequins. Dee Dee used to dress mannequins. Whatever you're doing, when you're looking at the world, whether it's you're looking at film, whether you're looking at old photographs, look at Maybridge photographs, whether you're drawing live models, whether you're staging and using photo representation and like taking pictures, writing out a script, having people act out your script, taking shots of that and copying those, right? If you're doing those, whatever approach that you're doing towards your work, it's important that you're assessing the world and looking at the world around you. There's a great deal of things to see. There's a great deal of things to experience and to know. And we're only ever, this is some hair I'm putting on this lady. We're only ever going to know those if we stop and take the time to do that. One of the things, I've tried to explain this and touch on this before, but one of the things about figuring out how to draw stuff, there's a twofold thing. And when I say draw, that's just an example. Just create. Let's just say create. How about I just stick to that one? There's a twofold thing. One, it's executing the thing, whether medium it is and whatever the process of how you do it. Right? That's authentically the way that you're speaking your voice, with writing, typing, filming, knitting, sewing, incorporating all those elements together, whatever it is. But it's only gonna make some sort of cogent sense to it all. There's a cohesiveness that comes through from that when you're really sitting back and you're looking at it from the perspective, from the know, from evaluating the world, from considering life experiences, from considering how that building looks, and with the dappled sunlight, reflecting off of it, how, how you go about interpreting the world. And then with that, let's just skip ahead from physical objects and let's talk about story. Let's talk about how do you interpret the world? How do you listen to conversations? How do you listen to engagement and things that are interesting to you? And whether it's from media that you're embracing and engaging with, in your day-to-day, or whether it's people talking around you, or conversations you've overheard at some point, or reflection on ideas and building up conversations in your own head, those assessments and those evaluations of story are automatically going to be yours because they're filtering through your own noggin, right? So when I'm talking about the creative endeavor and the creative approach and trying to look at the world around you and figure out not just how to physically draw in a traditional way, but also how to, I guess, take the inspiration of the world around you and draw, here we go, on that. I was really trying to figure out how to be able to fit that in without it sounding really, really tacky. But it's drawing on the world. It's drawing on the world inside your head and your imagination, and it's drawing on the world around you, or to the best of your knowledge of how it exists around you. Taking those two things together and making something new and making something that's your own. Whether it's visual project, textual project, both of those things together. Whether it's crafting two-dimensional images like paintings or quilts or whatever else it is. Those little different aspects are ways to interpret your own voice and how you see things. And I think that that's where the authenticity comes out. And I denigrate Spider-Man and Batman a lot just because these are the things that they produce so much stuff of, right? And if you want to read a really interesting Spider-Man, read Peter Baggy. I'm sorry, I'll write it down. Peter Baggy. He's an independent creator. He did Buddy Bradley, a lot of the Seattle grunge kind of stuff. Peter Baggy did the Megalomaniacal Spider-Man. And if you know anything about the creator of Spider-Man, Steve Ditko, not Stan Lee, Steve Ditko, is an objectivist. He was an objectivist that believed black and white. And once you're convicted of a crime, you're always a convict. You're not an ex-convict. It's just absolutism in his belief system. So what if his perspective was done in Spider-Man? And so you've got this Peter Parker that's constantly second-guessing himself. Is it my responsibility to save others, or should they take the ownership of their own actions and save themselves? It's absurd, but it's a fantastically unique and interesting take. Raul's doing art because they're in a writer's block. Writer's block? What? Come on. You're not in a writer's block. You're making art. You're capitalizing on the writing voice that you have in your head. It's the same thing. You're not in a block. You're just interpreting in a different way, right? Deny the block. No blocks exist. It's a case of left or right, right? And allow yourself that. You're going through whatever you're going through in life, every one of us. But at the same time, if we find this need for exposition of self, because that's what a lot of creatives need to actualize who we are, allow yourself to do it in whatever means takes hold of you to do it. And if it means you're not writing today, you're not writing today. There's no such thing as people to say they have to be this person, right? Allow yourself the facility of the ways that you diversify. Celts. I don't know what Celts is. Rachel says 2 movies I really appreciated were Arlington Road, Tim Robbins. There's some drama. And Joseph the Liar. Again, there's a depth, there's a resonance to the portrayals of characters, to the portrayal of their perspectives on the world, not just from the exhibition of the actors, but from the writers putting together the contextual narrative and putting together maybe the scripts. I don't know how much would be improv in those projects, but, and then you've got the visual interpretation from the cinematographer, the director, and you've got all of these different things that when they come together, they just build on these different ways of honing in and focusing on a way that everybody sings the song together. I've never really understood why so much investment is into the producer and so much investment is into the director, when realistically it's an entire crew, an entire team. Wouldn't it have been interesting if the film studio's system, you see directors that work with the same cinematographers for years, you see, and the same producers for years, and you see creative teams that have an authentic and individual voice and write the project and direct the project and do a lot of the art for the project. Guys like Terry Gilliam or Guillermo del Toro, these very specific vision people, and they work with the same teams. Wouldn't have been interesting if the movie world built on groups instead of built on individuals? I think that that would have been a whole different game if we would looked at it in that way. But anyways, those are both good projects. Those are both great projects. Yeah, there's so many different creative platforms that you can utilize. Deny the shortfall that you're feeling for one thing. It doesn't exist. That's easy to say, but it doesn't. You don't feel, for whatever the reason is, to be able to execute something in a certain way, but you might not realize that you're actually drawing on that same well. You're sipping from the same cup in order to get that message out of yourself a different way, and that's a gift. That's a real fortunate opportunity that you can do so. Embrace that. I think that's you can get recognition for one thing and at the same time not have all your eggs in that specific basket. Try different things. Pacific Heights is a scary film. Pacific Heights is a scary, scary film, Rachel. The idea of young, engaged, if I'm remembering the right one, is it not the young couple buys a house and then rents out their basement apartment to a tenant, and then that tenant then tries to engage everything possible in order to upset their apple cart and take their property from them? If that's the one, yes, it is. Okay. Oh yeah, that film is a horror show because that's real life. There's no scary monsters in the dark closets. There's no boogeyman or special effects for things, more so than just the horrible things that can actually happen. And that's real. And then sometimes reality is far scarier. I think that when The Shining is the scariest film ever made to me. And the reason I say that The Shining is the scariest film ever made for me is that I am that was your life that you went through that? Oh my goodness. I'm sorry to hear that. The Shining is the scariest film ever made because I'm a crazy creative, right? I write and I draw. I have had the young family, right? I have had the trying to facilitate my output, trying to focus on this with family around me. And there's two perspectives you can take on it. You can be greedy and say that everything around me has to accommodate my journey first. Or you can realize that that's not the living. The living is living. Engaging your life with the people around you, and then figure out you're going to do it anyway. So just figure out workarounds for when and where you can do it. But Dad going crazy in an isolated, a hotel in a mountain. Oh my goodness, that's a nightmare. That's a nightmare. There's no person that's had kids that at some point just hasn't gone. And, maybe you had some of these considerations or thoughts that, you're not going to admit to having thoughts of, oh my God, I could just get in that car and that way. Everybody does. And it's the difference is how you respond to those. Jack Nicholson's character did not respond well. Isn't that an understatement? Daddy! Right, Corbin? Corbin agrees. So this chair is not comfortable. So yeah, to me, that's a terrifying film. The Psycho, that's another terrifying film. It's a really strange film. It's a really, really, really strange film. Can I spoiler alert Psycho? Is there anybody that's going to go, I've never seen it. I can't believe you gave it away. I can't help you at this point. But it's the first time a film did this ridiculous thing where we are invested and engaged and have been forcibly made to be so, following their female protagonist for the first third into a half, 2/5 of that film. And then we switch to somebody else without, spoiling why we do it. But that's major. That's a ridiculous idea. As you get so invested in following one person and you think you're in a robbery film and then it goes sideways. That was crazy, but that's what I'm talking about. That's a director and a writer and a whole crew of people that are working in a group together in this kind of context. But if you were to do that as a comic book, let's say, that's a massive left turn. But it's a unique and it's an individual left turn. It's listening to that inner narrative, thinking about how the world works, thinking about how, while this notion that you're following is interesting, so's that one. And maybe I want to figure out a way how to jump from this track over to that one and ride the train that way now. And that's the sort of stuff that if you can allow yourself that and allow yourself to take in and to try to interpret in whatever free, unencumbered way that you can, that's where it starts becoming something that isn't the same as the person next to you, even if you're drawing the exact same thing. I'm a huge advocate for other people taking the one-page comic idea and even things that I've already done, like the 3 words I used yesterday, unicorn, mermaid, fence. Please do a comic of your own, or please do a project of your own on it. I love it. There's no part of me that says that it's mine and mine alone. It's that, we all express things and interpret things different ways. And we all have an authentic voice. Janet, if Janet's still here, was going through the other day in a stream. She's going through her, 100 pages of scavenger hunt, and going through all of these pieces that she's done. That project was her voice, like so uniquely her voice, and the way that she's putting together things for her voice was so. Here's the challenge of being creative, but do not let this hold you back. When you produce something and there's your thing, there's your output, you're letting people inside, right? You're letting people get to know you in ways that this talkie business is never going to do. Janet did. Janet's pretty cool. I got a smooch on my face. Thank you very much, Janet. That's nice. But I mean that. That was fantastic. Rachel read that Janet Leigh did not know what was going to happen in the shower scene. Oh, yeah. And then on top of that, he's not allowed to show blood. Hence the decisions about the black and white and having it, well, it's water going down a drain. So there's all kinds of choices that were made in that context. So yeah, Janet, I can't say enough about how cool that was to watch that. I like my scavenger hunt project with, I'm going to pronounce it wrong and I apologize. Pepe Alabrea? I don't know. Is the J Y or a J and H? I apologize. My last name's Runciman, Runciman, and you got no idea the amount of variations I get on that. That's why I sign things RUN-C-man. So I apologize. But there's a whole thing about the way that you go about doing these things and doing these projects. And I love that, Chris, that you've got a principal character that you've spread throughout your scavenger hunt project. That's brilliant. So it's like a narrative. I want to see that. That's really compelling to me. Rachel says that Janet is a genius, but don't tell her so. She's going to look at herself in the mirror all day. Oh, she got it. She got it. Not only will I look at myself, but I'll kiss myself in the mirror. I about did it yesterday. Okay. I don't like my scavenger hunt that much. Less white, more colors. Hey, you know what? You're going to figure it out. You're going to figure that out, Raul, on your journey, right? But in the meantime, I bet you it's keen for where you are, right? You might not appreciate it. And I'm going to let you in on a little secret, and everybody here can probably attest to that that's a creative type of their own. We don't like what we just did. Oh, we finished it. And yeah, I feel good about it, but if I had more time, I'd change this. Or looking back on this now, it's been a couple of months since I did it. I don't know. I want to go back and rework it. It's a universality thing. It's the same thing as if I could go back in time, I would tell myself to do things differently, blah, 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 right? Doesn't work. Just flat out doesn't work. If I could go back in time and Hitler, blah, 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 whatever, right? You can't, the who you are, not only in the genetic sense, but the who you are today is not who you were when you finish that page. Forget about the fact it's not who you were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and 50 years ago, whatever. You're just not. Everything about you is substantially different and has changed so dramatically that you're going to look at whatever it was that you did from a completely different perspective. If you draw this page and you move it aside and you draw the next page, you're going to take the first page you drew and look back at it and compare it against the next page you did and make all kinds of value judgments on that. And that relates back to yesterday about that critical self-evaluation is important. It is. But at the same time, keep going forward, because the next thing you're going to do is going to kick it again. 5 years from now, if you want to take this short story that you've done and redo it and give it a little bit more of that mustard that you've discovered on the table since, hey, right? There you go. Janet saying we all learn as we go, so don't be dissing on yourself. Yeah. I love that. That's what this community is all about. It's a real gift and a real blessing, this community, and the engagement and support and encouragement. And there's a lot of diverse stuff going on. There is a great diversity, and to the extent that people are doing different things entirely. Some people are scrapbooking, some people are collage working, some people are making comic books, whatever it is. Some people are just writers. Some people are, just painters, not that just anything, right? But despite the diversity in the community, not only for their individual lives, but for their individual approaches to their creativity, it's an incredibly supportive group. But your support for whoever you are and whatever you're making starts inside. Give yourself a break, because, you'd be surprised. Chris has already got an idea for 2024. I got myself in a really high bar this year. The competition is with myself. There you go. That's exactly, then take the time and change it. Figure out what it is that you've done. Figure out, reevaluate, look at itself, give yourself your own critical analysis, and Rachel's right. Then go back and do whatever you want to do differently. But maybe not just have to continuously go back and reiterate. Just do it a different way the next time on the next project, and refine. And allow yourself to take those experiences, including the experience of the last thing you might have wrote or visualized and or played, right? The way you're going to do that piece, if it's the same piece again, like a piece of music or whatever, tomorrow is not going to be the way you did it today, because your memory of how you went about doing it, you've already got this base level from having completed it already. So whatever future projects you're going to do, you have no choice but for them to get better. I'm not sure if anybody here has read Northrop Frye, but I highly recommend Northrop Frye's Educated Imagination. The more that we do something, the more sophisticated our taste gets towards it, whether it's food, whether it's writing, whether it's reading, whether it's, let's talk primarily about reading. If you just read one author and read every book that author writes, your level of sophistication for literature is based entirely on that author. If you read a diverse amount of materials, if you reference a diverse amount of ideas, then the level of sophistication that you have is strangely enough going to get more honed in on the aesthetic appreciation that you have. But at the same time, the feedback, the seeing the world, the learning all around you to draw upon, massive, right? Northrop Frye. Yeah, challenge yourself. Go for it. If I could go back in time, not this guy. There's too much to give up. There's too much to give up. Yeah, creatives of all types, Diddy, you're right. I'm trying to keep up. I'm sorry. The 3-prompt challenge has created another challenge for you to do it in 5 minutes. That's bold, but that's it. I like the quick and dirty when you're doing creating a page. Like when I'll sit down and I'll do this on a page, and I might spend time drawing a picture, but then in the course of doing this action of just drawing one thing and playing with an idea, or just sitting there and thinking is the same thing, or just looking out a window is the same thing, which might not make sense to people. Drawing for me is the same as looking out a window, but I'm touched in the cabeza. So then you got to sit down and put together the thing. Well, you've crafted all that visual narrative in your head. You've done it. Now you put it out down like hot fire. You got your stick people drawings or whatever level you're going to draw it at, and you're done. Project's over. Move on to the next one. And what that's going to hone in you is that knife-edge sword of approaching things. I do a page a day, not because it's look at me, I do a page a day. I do a page a day because it confines me, and I need confinement when it comes to too much thunking, as Didi puts it. You should be in advertising, Rachel. That's brilliant, though. The 5-minute challenge. That's well over the top. I'm sorry. The 3. Oh, that's nice of you. I really like the notion of 3 prompts. I expect that you're going to see more and more people asking for 3 prompts on your stream. I got six prompts from Didi, still working on it. Hey, yeah, do things in your own time. Do things in your own time, Ro. Read many authors, but when you find one you like, don't feel bad about reading everything they write. Oh, not at all. Not at all. There's certain writers that I have in my house. I have everything they've done. And there's certain authors that I'm like, you really should have tried some of this writer in your stable. Even if it's nothing like, well, I only let them read Harlequin romance. Still try some Kurt Vonnegut. You know what I mean? Like, still try something outside of that, because his romantic moments are ones you're never going to experience otherwise if you're just sticking to a specific type like that. I wouldn't go back in time, but I'd love to do it all over again. There you go. That makes a lot of sense. All the mistakes too, because that's what gives you the salt and pepper that makes you. I used to use the Sketch apps and set the timer in 2 minutes for basic forms practice. If I went along our session, I'll try 10 minutes. These sessions give you good results. Drawing from life and drawing from models and working up 30-second image, 30-second image. Then we move into a minute image. Then we move into a minute image, up to 5, up to 10, a half an hour drawing. and another 2.5 hours or an hour-long drawing, watch what happens. If you task yourself with that, you can do this with photography by just snapping something, and then taking a little bit of more time to snap a thing, and then to the point where you're actually looking for to put together a specific image, and watch the level of sophistication that rapidly changes in your pictures. Any pursuit like that, Chris, is genius. Yeah. No, that's thinking. Yeah, don't let the 3-prompt thing be your whole. Yeah, no, by no means. But I love the idea of the 3 prompts. I think maybe just even having people, if you're looking for 3 prompts, ask me and I'll give you 3. And just setting it on a sidebar and not having to do it during the streams. But I think you'll see more people want to clamor for those. The book reviews are great. Yeah, because the books that you've got are not the same books that are on my shelf, et cetera, for everybody. And, Dee Dee goes to a bookshop and clears out a shelving unit for them each visit she has, I think. But Peter Tremaine wrote 33 Sister Fidelma books. My wife reads everything by Maeve Binchy, is her favorite author. And she really enjoys Maeve Binchy, which is great. I've got lots of Orwell. I've got lots of Vonnegut. But at the same time, I've got I'm a Nerd, and I've got Steven Pinker's books. Not the same. There's no story in there. It's statistical data sets, and I'm on. But just read, or if you don't like reading, or reading is a challenge for you, maybe there's something that makes reading a difficulty. Then watch different things. I just rented from the library, or borrowed from the library, Junet and Caro, these 2 French directors did a film called Delicatessen. And my wife's not going to watch it with me. It's morbid post-apocalyptic silliness, but this French film is, I love it. It's wonderful. It's crazy. It's weird, but it's nothing like you're going to see being produced in North America. Dee takes a U-Haul with her just in case she finds something. A prompt partner dynamic could be interesting. Same prompts, 2 minds working, producing different results. Yeah. Oh yeah. That's a lot of fun. That's an awful lot of fun. There's just don't cost compare yourself with them. And what I mean by cost compare is not in the financial sense. I mean cost compare is your sense of value in your execution compared to them, and vice versa, so that one of you feels less than. That's no fun. Rachel likes Maeve Binchy too. I read more nonfiction these days, with some exceptions. Oh yeah, there's just so much great stuff out there. Yeah, there's a great deal of books out there. Even if Dee Dee's been to a bookstore before you, poor Dee Dee. Well, everybody's picking on her. Yeah, whatever it is, whatever the way that you're absorbing material into your head, the way that you're looking at the world and assessing ideas, or considering for a moment, how do I visually execute that if that's your bent, or how do I textually describe that object, individual, situation, right? There's just a whole bunch of different things that you can take into account when you're crafting a story. So the page I did yesterday about a unicorn seeing this reverse mermaid singing to themselves on some rocks. And, there's a real left turn in it where I say, who do you think you are, Mr. I'm so good living on that side of the fence? What does that have to do with a fish and a unicorn? Right? But that's my moment. That's the opportunity that I have to put an idea in there, to put a little something in there. And it's for no one's edification but my own. Is it just the notion comes into my head and I'm doing these pages at a degree or a speed that I don't want to triple think things. I don't want to overthink it. I just want to get it out and play with it a little bit, nuance it, clean it up, tighten up the visual or the textual image, and get it on to the next one. So, have a great day, Raul. Thanks for hanging out. Have a good appointment. I'm debating whether the new Milton Glaser POP book is about $60. I don't think I've read Glaser. I've got Milton Glaser. I don't know if anybody's read a lot of Malcolm Gladwell, but that's a guy really Glaser. Thank you. Yeah, Malcolm Gladwell's fantastic. I've really been enjoying him lately. Sitting in your cart. I really appreciate when an actor steps out of the expected role and surprises and delights the audience. I don't know if you have seen Westworld, not the old one, the new one. But there are moments in that thing where Anthony Hopkins is clearly exercising completely different powers than everybody around him. And there's been some fantastic looks and perspectives on his performance, because he's very performative in the sense that he will assess and evaluate a sentence. And when he says something like, you don't like it here, do you? You bank people. Like, there's just all these different expressions in that. You don't like it here, question. Do you? Confrontation. You bank people. Snide remark. One sentence. So, how do I write that? How do I put that into a one-page comic? How do I try to impart to a viewer the opportunity for them to maybe read that? And for them, and ideally, if they can read that and how I intended it, that would be lovely. That would be really lovely, because that's the capitulation of what we do creatively for somebody to get out of it. Oh, that was a tough convincing. Oh my. Enjoy that. That's going to be a fun project to read. But so creatively producing all this stuff and overthinking about overthinking. I'm going to use thinking for the rest of my life. Thank you for that. Yes, important is the viewer's responsiveness to you necessarily important for your continual creativity? No. Yes, but at the same time, somebody looking at what you've done and saying, okay, I get it, all right, good enough, right? That's somebody just takes a moment. I love that. I love that we're allowed to engage in free-form ideas. The idea of censoring of things. Now, there's negative, destructive thoughts in this world. Yes. But censoring expression is a horrifying nightmare for me. I don't like it. I don't like the fact that the repression of people to be who they are, or for people to say whatever they're going to say. Now, mind you, if you say a terrible, mean thing and somebody across from you doesn't like it, you can expect to get a punch in the nose. But you should still be allowed to say it. And I say that complete rejection of some ideas myself. So I still can't believe that if not for the virus, I might not have been introduced to these world that led me to Janet and Chris and Christopher. Yeah, I feel the same way. I really do. It's a gift. It's a real honor for me to be able to engage with people and to be able to share ideas. This congress of thought, this congress of creative sharing with one another, and watching what one person is making in such a diametrically different way than what you do, and for it to instill in you some momentary spark, some quick second of, oh, I'm going to try that in what I do, which honestly has no real connotation to what your creative endeavor is. Like if it's, you've seen somebody's takes MacTac and puts it on a shelf, you go, ooh, MacTac, you know what I mean? Christopher, please read virus with Texas nasal twang. I'll do my best. Virus, I like that. It's good. Virus, you can do it anyway. There's a million different ways. Yeah, there's a whole, that's one of those things I love when you see an awful lot of people talking about the same idea or repeating the same name, and how diverse the pronunciations of things are. Huh? See what I did there? Pronunciate. I love that. I really do. Except for my last name. No. Even that I get, variations on, and so be it. That's it's just fun to hear people say certain words completely different than the person that literally was standing at the same microphone speaking just before they did. That's always funny to me. There's this is a terrible reference, but when the situation happened in Oklahoma some years ago, and there's all this reporter coverage of it, I still remember this one rando reporter that kept saying Oklahoma, Oklahoma. Everyone around you keeps saying Oklahoma. How do you keep pronouncing it Oklahoma? That's great. And it wasn't, I really don't believe it was a dialectic thing, because it wasn't like an accent for a region or anything like that, because everything else that they said was in the same diction as everyone else. But for some reason, they still pronounced it Oklahoma. Oh, ridiculous. Only you can say that with the sarcasm and the correct twang. Oh, I'm going to need to hear that on your next stream. So here we are in all this talk about basically looking at the world around you and creative exaltation about that. And I have drawn the most despondent person writing. This my aspiring paperback writer does not look enthused. That's there you go. That's where my brain works. So one of the things I do, I had a tiny little picture that I looked at for the first character, but my thing has been off for some time, because once you've got your first image of a face, I really like the idea of, from that point forward, like as soon as you know the structure of the face and the way that the person's eyes are shaped, and this is where your stylistic approach starts coming in, because you'll see a lot of reiteration of the same sort of forms for eyes and nose and so on and so forth. But as soon as you start interpreting a person's expression and face, then what you can do is then sit down and start looking at how you can change up these angles now, and how you can change up the expressions, because you have some degree of understanding on the shape of their face. Then you can start playing with different viewpoints, right? So I'm a big fan of putting away your reference at that point, because if I want to pull in on a tighter shot on her face, I got to use that as my foundation. And because I'm using that as my foundation, it sort of frees me up and to go inside this, and you go inside your noggin, and you're not locked into a resource image. You're not locked into having to lean so heavily on something supplied. Is it going to look perfect? No. Is it going to be, the same level of quality representation that you got from copying something? It could. And the reason that I say that it could is because when you do it X amount of times, you start to develop a knack for it, or you start to develop that that language inside your head, like where I'm not drawing a face by breaking it down like this into all the little parts of a face because I've drawn enough faces that I don't need to do that. I am doing it. I'm just not doing it with the pencil. I'm doing it in my head. And I'm thinking about those things in my head. It's like I'm a big advocate of that. What am I missing? I'm missing a bunch of stuff. Oh, that's nice. Yes, thanks. Thanks, guys. Always struck by your detail. Oh, like that? I don't know. Well, thank you very much, you guys. So I'll do this. If I'm thinking about a face, I started looking at a face like this as planes. And then those planes get more and more elaborate as you go. But the shape around the eyes, and then the shape into the cheeks. And so this is how it becomes informative for you to draw robot faces and artificial faces, is because you can just break it down into these different planar elements. But you start doing this look at the face and all of the little aspects of a face that build it up together, instead of just looking at it as eyeball, holes for the nose, lips. We do all kinds of different approaches, and we make all kinds of directional decisions in anything what we work at. But like I said earlier, that's entirely referenced by the fact that you have sat down and looked at things and considered things and built on what we've talked about yesterday. It's one thing to say, I'm this guy who does this thing. This goes the same for me. It's one thing to say that. It's another thing for me to say, well, this is how I'm doing it here. And ideally, there's growth and development that I want, the same as everybody else. And allow yourself that. Allow yourself to look at the things that you see the flaws in, and you see the mistakes in, and you see the way that you're not quite getting out the way you want to interpret the world. You'll get it a little closer next time. I enjoy your mind dump. Mind dump. I think I should announce it every time. Hi, gang. Here's my book for today. Are you ready? Mind dump. Yeah, that'll be good. Boing. Cartoon sound again. Mind dump. Boing. Yeah, I'll have to get a little sound effect thing. Sometimes we don't think about these things. My overthinking goes on all the time, and the problem with isolation and the problem with the individual journey for people, in the sense that you're working at home in your studio or in whatever your place is, or even if you're sitting in a cafe shop, you're surrounded by people, but you're still working on your own. Hey, thanks for hanging out, Chris. Have a great day. We'll see you soon. Bye. I wonder what she's making. There's, even if you're surrounded by other people, there's still this individual journey, this individual interpretation that you're doing inside of your own mind. There's there's a lot to consider about that. There's an awful lot to allow yourself in the way that you go about engaging with others. And so when you get isolated and you get all these thoughts caught up in your head, and even when you're doing your creative exploration, you don't necessarily have the opportunity in order to get out some of those notions that you're working on and you're developing and you're thinking of yourself. Or you've thought about them a lot, maybe too much. And there's other people that, sometimes other people that are in a different place in their journey, and they're like, well, I'm just dealing with this, or I'm uninspired to do a thing, or I'm what was it meant? Writer's block. There's ways we can get out of writer's block, and sometimes the ways you get out of writer blocks is by considering things from the way somebody else has already thought about it. Does that make sense? All right, let's do this. Let's break this page down here. Dan's going to be here in a few minutes, and I'm going to take a quick BRB to go and well, let them in. And so here's our page. I got this fantastic. I always love when people say, I can't draw stick people. I'm like, I can't draw stick people. If there's one thing I look at and go, oh, I don't like that, it's stick people. When you draw stick people, I'm always looking at them going, that is terrible. All right, so if we've got, so our idea is a page about an aspiring paperback writer, like the song. So I think that playing with the idea of, paperback writer as with the title and playing with that, the text of that is something I want to incorporate in the opening part of it. Perhaps my artistic inhibitions fly out of the window when you are creating. Well, maybe. I don't know how inhibited I am. Honestly, I tend to chase down whatever thing is like, that's why I've got the painting over there. I'm, doing models with the grandkids and the traditional, the digital work, and writing, of course, at the same time. I don't hold back a lot. That's for sure. But yeah, it's probably helps me in the course of having this time with you to talk and to get feedback from people. It helps me in zoning in a little bit, zoning in on, I've got this. If I'm in front of you, okay, there's a thing about when I'm drawing this thing, this panel specifically, let's say, or plotting out a page. If I'm in front of you, that puts me on call to just do it. And yeah, no, definitely not. That puts me on call when I'm doing the streams, so that it's you can't play a lot. Well, maybe I'll draw it this way, or I could draw it that way, or I don't know. Let me think. There's not an awful lot of that time. It becomes a case of what's the rhythmic flow I want to put forward? Is there an underlying idea I want to put forward? The short speed kicks in, and the short execution of images and the short execution of what it is I'm trying to get across textually and visually on the page as fast as I can, so that I can put it together in 24 hours and spit it back out. Now, and I don't get 24 hours to do them either. It's I spend this time during the stream doing them, and then I got household stuff to do, and then family stuff to do, and I sit back down again about 10 o'clock tonight and work till 2. But I don't just work on this from 10 till 2. I'll put 2 hours in towards this, but I got to put 2 hours in towards the thing I've been doing all morning. So it's that limitation of time and that having to structure yourself, I think, can be a really good way to fine tune, like 5-minute 3-word suggestions. It's the same kind of a thing. That's Christopher Uninhibited Thunker Runciman. That's going to be my new name. Uninhibited Thunker. Yeah. So, paperback writer, first little bit on the page. Okay, headed into town. Uh-oh. People wish me luck, or wish the people I encounter luck. Thanks, Janet. Yeah. Good luck, folks. She's coming. She's coming. Get the kids off the street. Yeah. Maybe not that bad. All right. So if I think about paperback writer, one of the things that just pops into my head when I write down the words paperback writer, and this is the part I mean about thinking about the world around you and allowing yourself this ability to engage these ideas and incorporate them into whatever you're doing, because you're trying to think of, well, what would it look like for a bunch of books, falling from wherever, and putting those in along with the paperback writer having a whole bunch of books falling from out of the sky. So that element I'll want to incorporate here. And then we move over to this our writer character and insert her in here, and that establishes, so the tonality is already in there. Hope to catch you tomorrow. Oh, points bulletin, look out for Janet. How do you know? Oh, you'll know. I'm so mean. I'm terribly sorry, Janet. So, okay, so with the books cascading from the sky along with the paperback writer, and then the first panel being a person sitting there resting on their hand, looking uninspired, it sort of establishes identifiable courses of narrative. Is this about a person who doesn't know what to write next? Is this a person who's writing the same thing? Is this a person who hasn't written anything because they're overthinking it? Is this a person and so all those little narrative streams, those little tracks of thought, those little train tracks of thoughts can pop in. And then it becomes a course of enacting upon that, right? So the next panel could be a eureka moment where she goes, aha, mad look in her eyes. And then she starts, throws the paper and the pen off the table and starts furiously typing on a typewriter. Now this is hip. And then somebody else comes over and pushes that off the table and puts on a word processor. That's just one crazy train of thought. Another train of thought is her sitting there thinking, and it cuts in on a close-up of her face, and she closes her eyes and goes, oh, and then she starts dreaming of Fabio, But that's the whole thing about following that direction, thinking about the world, the associations, the connections in your head that you've made from how things happen, around you, or how you've perceived stories or other media that you've engaged with. And then that helps you at the end of the day figure out exploring ideas on your own, because you have all of these things that you've paid attention to, seeing how other people have stitched things together. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the idea that, hey, here's all this AI art that's being produced and you're allowed to look at it. Some people are really up in the other people's noses about that. I personally don't care. Is it upsetting for people that their bread and butter is dependent upon these visual images that they've constructed and an AI machine being able to go beep, bop, boop, and there it is? I could see them being upset. Sure, I get that. And creative license and copyright and all that stuff. Sure, but yeah, I could see the upset about that. But I love looking at this AI nonsense. There are some incredibly funny, goofy things being made. And I like looking at them, and, no skin off my nose on that front. But that's just another part of the world around us that we're looking at and getting ideas from and putting together ways of interpreting that information. So if that inspires you, to, I don't know, let's just use this for an example. Go out in your garden and take pictures of Barbie enacting scenarios involving people that you know, just as an example. That's great. That's perfect. That's a wonderful way to explore ideas and to explore story. Still have not figured out if that tree I sent you is AI. I believe it is. I like that the SOIC lists to stimulate imagination. Sure, yeah. I'm not sure what the SOIC is. But yeah, anything that stimulates imagination is perfect. Never run out of ideas if you have netbooks, or you're crazy. Isn't that right, Bill? That's right, Billy. Yeah, I think it's definitely an idea. I like a lot of the beautiful AI art as well. And there's some really awful AI art. Let's be honest. There's some really, and then there's some really dumb stuff. I like the tacky sci-fi images that are being put out. Oh, Society of Idea Collectors. That's what you call your idea notebooks? That's cool. The Society. That's cool. I like that. Society of Idea Collectors. Yeah, that's awesome. You're like a gang. You get matching tattoos. Welcome to society. Repeat the society's motto. And everybody puts on their buffalo hats and brings out their scrapbooks. And I take things serious sometimes. The idea of the Society of Art Collectors is fun, but immediately you hear my brain starts constructing this absurd narrative about it. Who says we don't have matching tattoos? I never got a tattoo. Needles are scary, says the type 1 diabetic. That's one of my favorite dumb jokes, by the way, is whenever I have to get blood taken, I always tell the person taking my blood that I'm afraid of needles. It's so dumb. Oh, are you on a pump? That's the first thing I get asked. Because there's a thing that you can get so that just automatically, it's always stuck in you. It just sort of gives you insulin when you need it. It's called a pump. But otherwise, you numerous times a day. Who says we don't have matching tattoos? Meet you at the parlor. Yeah. All right. So with the whole idea of the story is that I've already incorporated a couple of elements. I've got some initial ideas about putting in the paperbacks, and I've got as a motif, and then I've got the introduction of her, and then I've already come up with 2 streams of direction for the story, which could actually be 1 stream of direction, because if the first thing she's doing is daydreaming about incorporating Fabian, what's his name? The blonde guy with the "hello, I'm in the doorway, ladies," that guy. Nightmare fuel. That could be her first consideration, right? And then the second idea that comes kicking in the doorway is, her mother coming in dressed up in stereotypical curler's house coat and with a rolling pin in hand. Get away from my daughter! And then she wakes up off of her desk where she's sleeping and immediately starts typing. Paperback writer, where do the ideas come from? Oh my goodness. Fabio, it's Fabio. Yeah, you gotta. I don't do tattoos, but I let new phlebotomists take my blood. Phlebotomist is one of those words where other people go, "Oh, what?" Your daughter in LA is an RN. Dun dun dun. No, that's a good thing. No RNs. None of my kids are RNs. Yeah, it's you want certain people to kind of know what they're doing. And a person jamming your arm full of needles, you kind of tend to hope that they know how to stick it in just the skin and not through your shirt. She put herself through nursing school. Damn, good for her. Oh, someone's at the door. Okay, I'm going to be right back. Be right back with our guest for today. So just give me 1 second. And in the meantime, talk about yourself. Yeah, so I thought we'd just sort of get talking about things in a second. But if you do want to drink, you want coffee, just water. Okay. All right. Well, yeah, I just think the second one.
Oh, sure, yeah. No worries.
So can sit down.
Sure, yeah. That's good.
Okay. All right, so I got a spot for you here. This is all right. We got a guest.
Hello.
Okay, give me 1 second. I'm just going to turn on the camera, and we've got. I'm excited that you've been able to make it in today and come and hang out. Hey, everybody! This is DS or Dan Eric.
Hey, everybody.
And Dan is a friend of mine here in London, and he's also a writer and an artist. And so he's produced a few different books on his own and with other people. And so one of the things that is really exciting is he's got a new project coming up. And I'm excited for him because when you watch the progression and development, you get a bunch of hellos.
Awesome. Hi, everybody.
When you're watching the development and the progression of a person's creative journey, similar to the stuff that we've been talking about. Well, I guess I don't need that up. I still got to be right back on the table. When you're watching that happen, it's always exciting when other people around you are producing. It's the same thing as the congress that we all have when we're talking online and then we're talking from whatever diverse places that we're at about the fact that we're all in that creative journey together.
Yeah.
And so we've been chatting about the authenticity of looking at the world around you and engaging and taking in all those thoughts in the production of your work. So I think maybe, so I'm going to pick Dan's brain today.
Awesome. That sounds
We're going to pick it. Let me show you something first for those that are out there. This is a couple of the projects that he's done already. This is, and if you want to talk to him,
Yeah,
talk about them. This
Sounds
is
good.
one of my favorite things. Okay, so this book is called Naomi Thatcher. All right, but it, if there's a problem that can be solved with cola and verbose speculation, Naomi Thatcher's got it covered. Is one of the funniest lines I've ever heard on the back of a book. What's this one about?
This one came out. I started working on it in 2003. I just graduated from university. My friend Trevor Jameson, who's an artist in Sarnia, we had been through the art program at Western together, and he was staying on to do Teachers College, and I was just kind of taking some time to figure out what I was going to do. And he said, "Hey, I'm going to do a comic strip for the Gazette.
Yeah.
Do you want to do one too?" And I wouldn't have tried it if he hadn't said, "Hey, let's do it together. Let's each do one and see what happens." And we actually got my brother as well and said, "Hey, do you want to join in? We'll all do strips." So I think they only printed a few of them. We
Yeah.
submitted them, but it kind of took on a life of its own. And I think the biggest realization with this book, when you're talking about kind of discovering what are you trying to say, what are you trying to do, I'd gone from doing work that was kind of like funny book style mini comics to trying to incorporate some more serious themes. And some of that stuff ended up being kind of more directly autobiographical, but felt incredibly boring to me. And I didn't like the stand-in character for myself.
Sure.
So I came up with this character, Naomi, who really was me, but I discovered this trick that if it's, if it's this girl who's still in university, I think she's supposed to be in like third year in those strips. It's clearly not me. The character isn't me, which allowed me to just put all these ideas and thoughts and observations
Nice.
through her character, without being self-conscious about, this is me trying to represent myself. I had this alter ego that I could kind of play with.
Well, there's that interesting part of the fact that you the character that you chose to distance your own autobiographical sense from is also not even the same gender as you.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's progressive for the time for sure. I mean, I'm sure we see a lot more of that these days, but
Right.
the whole idea of just exploring the story as story
Yeah.
is really, 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 really thought provoking.
Yeah, I think that was a big thing for me as well. And I think you're right that we have more of awareness of the whole spectrum of how gender plays out at this point. And for me, the traditional, like, manly man kind of thing never worked. And so, to have it did feel more comfortable in some ways to have this character who, it's still fiction. I don't know from my own experiences what it is to live life as a woman, but
Well, let me tell you about it. No, I
but
understand.
I think it is. I think that's something that is exciting, that we're seeing people feel more comfortable in who they are, and whatever form that might take.
Rachel says you also had to explore the psyche of the opposite sex. She also said you got to put on a mask and act a part of you.
Right.
It's a mask that you're this persona that you're creating, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, but definitely
I think
explore
that's
the psyche of the opposite.
That's an interesting observation too, because just that idea of putting on a mask, like we do that every day with any presentation of identity.
The identifiable three versions of self. There's the
Mm.
self that you know that
Right.
nobody else does, the self that those that are only close to you know, and then
Right.
the externalized self that you hope
Totally.
people pick up on.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
not necessarily.
And,
And then I've always thought there was a fourth. I always thought that there's the self as other people understand you
interesting.
in general,
Yeah.
right? And the more that your circle widens, the more that the variations on that are going to be drastic,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Because some people will just hate you on sight just because that's you can't speak to them.
No, that's true.
It's an interesting thing in the process of story and in the process of, well, why do I do it? I do it from the inspiration of, well, I guess, instigation of other people.
Yeah.
Also,
sure.
Didi likes that you use the word verbose.
Wonderful.
It's one of those great words. Instigation just popped in my head. I like that word. Didi like verbose. Yeah. Oh, there you go. Rachel says the evil self that only I know.
Right. Yeah.
Or the flawed self.
Yeah.
It's a challenge when other people express their flaw,
Yes.
because
Yeah.
you want to encourage them and support them and help them strengthen those walls about self-definition. But
Yeah.
at the same time, there's an awful lot of foibles. Yesterday we talked about critical self-evaluation and artistic expression.
Right.
I draw goofy cartoons, but I got heady, thunky. But there's an awful lot about the assembly and the deconstruction of
Yeah.
ideas.
Mm.
And when you look at it and go, well, I can't do it, it's not good enough, it's too.
Right.
Nobody around you that knows how to do anything with that, because we're all doing the same things.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah.
Everybody does,
Yeah.
whether you're creative or not, right?
Yeah.
So is Naomi. So Naomi is the first.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's the collection of the strips and
it really became it was about the relationship she had with her friend Charlie, who it's interesting because, well, as I'm sure you could speak to as well, just that idea of all these characters are like little fragments of yourself.
Yeah.
So a lot of the writing process was like having conversations with myself.
Mm-hmm.
And Naomi is the part of me that gets really indignant about injustices and angry about why is the world this way, when, you know, if we were being more intelligent about things,
Sure.
it would be like this. And I think to some extent I see her as being kind of scrupulous to a fault. Whereas Charlie's kind of the relaxed side, where he has that perspective of, you know, maybe we don't need to be that concerned about things all the time. And so I thought the balance between those two characters was interesting.
Is there that ego?
Very much so. Yeah. It's interesting because I think
there's that, you know, the super ego element. Is that Naomi more?
Naomi
so
is very much the super ego. It's very
and
true.
So
yeah.
If you look at the contrarian viewpoint or the more subdued viewpoint as just being the other character,
Yeah.
there's got to be some neuroses kicking it. Like there's those conversations like the conversational approach to pages is always funny. I feel those pastries need a change of name.
Yeah.
What, croissants?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, the thing is, it's really hard and embarrassing for me to say as an Anglophone. It sounds insulting to French speakers when it comes out, you know, chassois. It's how the person reads it. Like there's something in those thoughts and how we put those thoughts together. That's exactly what we're talking about today, is the observational perspective on creativity,
Yeah.
and then how you execute that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so so your first project you do, and okay, so Rachel says that before we
Oh, sure.
there's the evil self that only she knows. Well, if she had flaws, maybe. And then Rachel says, "Oh my God, I'm Naomi." That's why I had to read that out.
Oh my God.
So you start. So here's your starting point,
Yeah.
and it's a really, really fantastic starting point. But because, like you say, you came at it in this sort of 64 comic strip
Yeah.
run, that short, brief,
Yeah.
creative avenue of the strip allows you to build that larger body.
Yeah.
It's a really deceptive thing. I don't think a lot of people appreciate
that's a good
that
point.
enough.
Yeah, that's a really good point, that it accumulates, that you're focused on something smaller, and then especially if you're sticking with those same characters, all those repetitions and revisiting. And 64 is a pretty short run for a comic strip, but it makes me think of I don't know if you've ever seen the comic strip James by Mark Tonra. Never saw it in newspapers. It's one of those kind of things where I read an interview with him in the Comics Journal and went and picked up his books. And that comic strip is just an exercise in minimalism, where if you read one or two of them, it's kind of like, it's okay. It's kind of funny, but as you read more and more of them, so much of it is just those nuances being stacked on top of, you know, getting to know these characters.
Like the interreferentiality.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And just the personalities of each. It's about a bunch of like 4-year-old kids.
Even better.
And who, of course, don't talk like 4-year-old kids.
No, of course they never do. That's the best one.
He drew it all in fountain pen, so it's a really loose style, and there are a couple books of it out, but I thought that one was one that really illustrated how the comic strip, like an individual strip, might not really feel like much of anything, but it's such an interesting experience when you revisit
when you build all those up.
Yeah.
And especially coming at a project from, especially if it's your first project.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? If it's your first project and you're doing these small compartmentalized sections.
Yeah.
And before you know it, you look at it and go,
yeah,
I've got this many. A recent thing that was put out in the online community here is a scavenger hunt book and 100 pages of objectives.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And And then one of the people that I think the person that put it together to run it went through theirs.
Oh
Her
yeah.
name's Janet. She's cool. And fantastic, because as you watch the moving through the pages of it,
Yeah.
you realize, and you might not even the person doing it. And I can't speak to Janet or anybody specifically, but
Yeah.
people that are doing that might not even realize that they've put together a book
Right. Yeah.
just in the process of putting
And this
together X
this
amount of
reminds me
pages.
of the story of sort of the Runciman Press origin of Lori finding in the drawers, right?
Yeah, three
yeah.
books in a drawer.
Yeah.
And
But I think about your one-page comics. It's a similar kind of thing where it's individually, there's first of all they're beautiful drawings, all of them. but that accumulation, like the effect of coming back to that structure, I think
it forces you to grow.
Yeah.
It forces you to, if you can just do the same thing every day,
right.
you really could.
Yeah.
I have a thing where I look at the last 3 or 4 days,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't do that.
right.
That's the only real part of me that has an evaluative process towards what I'm doing right now. Is
Right.
that I go, did I do that yesterday? Did I do this
Mhm.
kind of, like, so today the panels there's a bunch of open-ended panels.
Oh, cool. Yes.
And purposefully, because there's been a lot of boxed
Right.
pages. So, you gotta shake it up.
Yeah.
And then I think tomorrow's page is going to have a really large image. You know what I mean? Like you do these sort of thoughts.
That's a really good point, though. That idea of like, where do I go next? What's different from what I've just finished doing?
Rachel calls this approach the 4 toddlers or the 4 kids. I get it now. Comic strips.
Yes. Yeah.
She's really.
That's very true. Yeah.
That's that was a real moment. There's something about that process that once, and so now you're on the road.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Whether you had intended to be comic guy.
Right.
There's an expression, and if somebody can fill this in the chat, inspiration is 50% from your butt or something like that. It just really makes me crank up. It's one of those things where you're like, Didi, if you're there, if you can, yeah. I always say inspiration is 50% perspiration. I'm sorry, I got those statistics wrong. Inspiration is 99% from your butt. It's just flying by the seat of your pants, right?
Yeah.
At least that's my take on it. So here you are.
Mm-hmm.
What were you taking at school?
I was in the Bachelor of Fine Arts program at Western.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and your intention from the Bachelor of Fine Arts,
So,
did you have, what was your grand narrative that you established?
This is interesting. So I starting at Western had enrolled, they had a program called Scholars Electives, which if you had a particular average, you could design your own program. And my intention was, I had started doing some mini comics end of high school. Like I'd been working for the school paper, doing comic strips. Started doing some mini comics. And I had the idea of what is a university degree that I can do that has something to do with comics. And with Scholars Electives, I thought, I can design my own program. I can combine English and art, because that was all we had as OAC back in the day. Grade 13 courses. That was what I was trying to do, just get as many English and art courses as possible. And as it turned out, I discovered that I didn't need to have a special program. Combined honors English and art is just a thing. You don't need to have some special.
There's no lofty degree.
You don't need to customize your degree. You just say, I'm doing combined English and art, and it's a thing. But a few of my friends in my first year art class, when we got to intent to register, which I think was in February, so you're declaring what program you're going into. And I had already declared that I was doing combined honors in English. A bunch of them said, I'm going to do the BFA program. And I
So,
realized.
Okay,
Oh,
yeah,
sure, yeah.
and Canada, OAC, sorry, OAC is Ontario Academic Classes.
Yes.
And it's a year 5 in high school in Ontario. They don't exist anymore, do they?
No.
It was a thing in the 80s, 90s,
Yeah.
90s, I guess it would have been. No, it was in the 80s.
The last class, I think my brother was the second to last class, and he graduated in 2002. So probably 2003 was the last year of that.
Okay.
So it's been gone for 20 years.
So it went for much longer
Yeah.
than I thought. So that's what it was. It was like a year 5.
Yeah.
And they had, when I did it in the 80s,
Right.
You had law classes, you had guidance classes, you had English, you had maths, there was a wealth of choices.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And they were all pre-college, pre-university classes. Is basically what it is.
Yeah.
And our education system is, it used to be basic, or what was it called? It was
basic, advanced, and general.
General and advanced courses in Ontario. Maybe not all of Canada, but at least in Ontario. And so basic tend to be, they called it basic because it diminished the amount of academia that was involved, and it was really more about foundational classes, things with your hands. And then advanced is just your general, general is your every classes, right? Just the standard approach to education. And of course, academic was more books, more reading,
Yeah.
more maths.
Yeah.
But things have changed a lot. Sorry, I want to get back to your educational journey. But Dee Dee's 99% from your butt is in reference to you got to sit down and work.
Yeah, that's a really good observation.
It's important to capitalize.
That's so true.
To make sure that's the
fulfillment
of that expression. Rachel finds it interesting you chose the comic strip format. But we'll come back around to that. Ontario Arts course is a real thing as well. You're not wrong, because Rachel had written that down. Ontario Arts course is a post-secondary thing. So
yeah.
But it's changed a little bit. Rachel says, you mean like when I was going to school in the 60s? Is it the deviant academics? So
intent to register. This is the silly thing about it is that, so I'm going to do, I've already declared combined honors English and art because I think, I can do comics. I'll learn a bunch of stuff that will be really useful. And then some of my friends in my first year studio course started talking about, I declared that I'm doing Bachelor of Fine Arts. And I don't know, I just had this gut feeling of like, I really am enjoying spending this much of my time in the studio.
Sure.
I think I should do that and do just take as many English courses as possible. So what I did, which is not the intention of this Scholars Electives program, I think at all.
No, I would think that.
What I did was I used it so that I regret this a little just in terms of, having a broad background in different areas, but I used it to allow myself to choose what courses, but did a BFA. So I didn't have to do any of the non-English and non-art courses. So that's very fortunate. My entire degree, I did one psychology course, and every other credit I took is all English and all art. But I did a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree. So
you left university?
No, I stayed in.
No, you left university.
Left university. Yes. Okay. Sorry. Yes.
Without taking any maths.
Yes.
Without taking any sciences.
Yes.
Without taking any, those things that are always expressed as being foundational,
right?
Fully rounded.
Yes, I am not a fully rounded person.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying.
I do regret because I actually,
all that.
Yeah, I really like math in retrospect, but I think now it's always that difference of, I remember years ago, I was part of a Dungeons and Dragons game, and I was reading this musty tome.
Now.
Apparently, yes. It didn't used to be. Reading this musty tome about like how big European villages were, and thinking I would never read this if somebody told me that I had to. But it's really interesting because nobody's making me do it.
It's very subversive. Rachel says it's brilliant that you're using academia to your best advantage. It's very novel. It's a very novel idea, which is very true. I mean, there's. I'm not an institutional guy. I'm
Right.
not I did high school.
Yeah.
And get out there.
Yeah.
But that journey is it's nice that you were able to a very streamlined approach that you were able to put together.
Yeah.
And, but that you made the most of it.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you went on from your BFA and got your teaching
That's right.
certificate, and then
That's right.
here you are. You teach. You subversive that you are. You teach young minds now.
Occasionally, my brother is a teacher as well, and occasionally I just have this. Neither of us particularly liked being in school. Why did we decide to stay in?
It's the Michael
until
Seaver, buddy.
retirement?
It's the Michael Seaver. There was a show in the 80s.
Oh, yeah?
Where Kirk Cameron
Okay.
was and he had his rich friend Richard Stavone,
Okay.
who they called Boner. And Alan Thicke was the dad, and so he was this real bad kid.
Right.
And then by as the show progresses over time, and it's the show that started Leonardo DiCaprio's career.
Oh yeah.
He
Okay.
was 11 on this show.
Wow.
And so by the time he's the lead principal character, really, Mike Seaver is a teacher. And he was the worst student. So
That's funny.
yeah, it's funny how that comes together.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it's the same with me. Like I, clearly not following the normal guy path, the normative path. And yet I go to these different schools and
Right.
and it's not the same as everyday molding of young minds, but
Right,
I go in and
yeah.
corrupt them briefly and run away.
Yeah. So that's good. Yeah.
That's my secret. So okay, so you come out of it,
Yeah.
you're doing your strips, you're following your course, you're
Yeah.
becoming a teacher as well, and not to sideline your career, not
Mhm.
by any means,
No.
but okay, so the next thing that you're working on,
Yeah.
because there's the intensivity and the intensive education component for you to go and finally
Sure.
get your teaching diplomas, and then of course to try to find a position.
Yeah.
Um,
That derailed things a lot.
It would. Of
Yeah.
course it would. And
Yeah.
I think that there needs to be an appreciation of that, of
Yeah.
course. Because life, I've always said this, it's being an artist, being a creative is a greedy thing.
Mm-hmm.
For you to be a really successful artist,
Right.
it's greedy.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that, and what I've always meant by that is there's a great deal of sacrifice and accommodation around you
Right.
that needs to exist in order
Yes.
for you to be Andy Warhol,
Sure.
in order for you to be whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lou Reed, who cares?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But you've got family, you've got
Yep.
education, you've got career, you've got all these things in life that are very important things.
Yeah.
And so I think the real creatives out at that point,
Mm-hmm.
because they still got to do it. Like they
Right.
still, the fidgety fingers,
Yeah.
right? They've got to play their piano. They got to do whatever they got to do,
Right.
because that gives a semblance of rationale.
Yeah.
So were you always doing little things along that and in that time period, or did you just jump back in, and jump out and jump back?
That is an excellent question. It's a perfect segue into the book that's underneath there, because I did have a period where it's exactly as you said, where finished the degree. I actually put together. We didn't have the paper book version of Viscosity Thatcher. I did a hand-bound hardcover, and I did 25 of them of this one. And I finished that up while I was in Teachers College. So while I worked for about 3 years.
When Viscosity Thatcher,
Yeah.
the Naomi Thatcher character.
Yeah, so I was doing those between finishing at Western and going to Teachers College.
Yeah.
Finished putting together the handbound book while I was in Teachers College, got out of Teachers College, and then it was into, okay, how do I get a job?
Did you do Old House in London, or did you do New York?
Yeah, I did Old House.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Old
So-
House College is at Western University as well.
Yeah.
Just for those.
So at that point, exactly like you say, Christopher, it was supply teaching is kind of brutal.
Yeah.
Really energy draining. I was still trying to write strips, like a new batch, because I'd finished that collection. And I got married shortly after, so we were trying to figure out family stuff and make sure we have enough income
Sure.
that we can make ends meet and everything. Went back to Staples, where I had worked for 3 years in between, and was working there doing design part-time. But really the only creative stuff was trying to write some of these strips, which didn't really come together. And then starting to do a little bit more advertising work for one of our local shops, LA Mood Comics and Games. I've been friends with Carol and Gord for a long time, so I was doing some ad stuff for them. And I was slowly starting to feel like I didn't know who I was anymore, because this thing, and I don't know that this is entirely healthy, to build your identity all around one thing. But it really started to feel like, well, what am I doing? And my creative outlets were, I'd get together and play board games with my friends, which at first was a nice relief, because the hobby aspect became really low stress. There was no I'm not needing to make anything. It's not goal oriented in the same way. I can actually relax, and that was nice at first.
Would you say your draw was the story, and you were subjugating the need for creating story because you were, again, subversively engaging in story in your campaigning?
That's a good question. No, we were mainly playing board games, so for me it was actually, I think, turning that part of my brain off.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we were doing, more just tabletop games that didn't have a huge narrative element. But I think a lot of that element was more just watching a lot of movies and
feeding the need for story.
Yeah, it was more consuming at that point.
So you're ingesting as much as you possibly can in a way to sort of subjugate the idea of trying to find a sense of equilibrium by making.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. And I think it was a lot of music at that point as well. I also had some struggles with anxiety at that point. So at a certain point, I wasn't doing a lot of anything. So
this happened.
Yeah.
Rachel says the rest of the world must move aside to allow the creative in, which is everyone should go through life with a box of 64 Crayolas and a Scrabble game in their pocket.
Yeah. That sounds good to me.
It's difficult to absorb a hobby. This is Rachel again. Difficult to absorb a hobby into real life and still maintain the enjoyment of the hobby.
Yeah.
That's pretty profound, especially considering the background of working part-time at the store and doing promotional material for them. That is your hobby engagement.
Yeah.
And yet here you are.
Yeah, it is a weird thing where you're making flyers to a place where you then go into the sales that you did the flyers for, spend your money.
Yeah.
This is
I guess.
Yeah.
I hear that completely. I did a couple of those flyers over the years with
right.
That was the downhill. I managed another store here in London for a long time.
Yeah.
A long time. And I think Dee Dee's singing this, but she says, "The Circle of Life."
Yes.
I picture you singing, "The Circle of Life." Yeah. Holding up something. Get one of the cats. Come on, up in here.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's, how, Rachel says, indeed, how do you pull yourself out? What comes together?
What ends up happening is that a friend of mine who worked at Staples, I started trying to reach out to, just friends, like, come over, play some games. This was all kind of good stuff, but it was still where it was kind of stagnated with the creative stuff. So a friend of mine from Staples said, "Hey, can I bring a friend of mine over for a game night?" And this is where Scott McDougall, who's the creator and writer of Lucky Unlucky, that I met him. We played board games, and he said, when we were chatting, "I've got this idea for this comic. Steve tells me that you draw comics. Would you be interested in meeting up sometime and just hearing the idea that I have?" And that's always a dicey scenario.
Oh yeah.
Because I'm sure you've had these kind of scenarios. I've had scenarios where people I think, would like to do something and they don't realize the amount of commitment that it would take to do it. And they say, well, here, let me pitch this idea to you,
I've got
which,
this 7-page series.
right.
All right. It's about a surfer who's got water powers.
Right.
All right. Let me tell you about. Okay. So here's the start of it, right? And have you written any this down? No, but it's going to be with 7 books.
This is
How about-
exactly
Just go write it down first.
right.
Let's start with
Which
that.
this is the brilliance of the 1-page stories that you're doing, is that people actually can give you like a little germ of an idea,
surfer.
but you're not
Water
committed to
powers?
7 volumes that you're doing all the work for them. So
I never
so
thought about that. I gotta be honest. I've
Yeah.
never thought about
Yeah.
that in that regard. That have I ever just saved myself from bad pitches?
well, I would say
Although
never.
I don't believe in bad pitches at some
Yeah,
level.
yeah. But never launched like the we're going from the 1-page strip to here's the 8-volume. Send in your suggestion that I'll draw 8 volumes for.
Yeah, jeez. Good heavens. That'd be a huge transition.
Yeah, it's so I was a little worried because Scott's a really nice guy. We got along really well, and I thought I hope he has a cool idea. It would be cool to do something again. Kind of maybe, I could work on something. And we met up at the Bearcat location that used to be downtown.
Yeah.
And that's a shawarma place for people who are watching.
Warm.
So we just had lunch and he said, here's the pitch. It's this guy. His life isn't going well, and he likes to play cards at the casino, and he gets this mysterious stranger who says, look, if I will give you as much luck as you want at the casino, but you're going to pay for it outside of the casino with an equal amount of bad luck. And I thought this sounds really cool and
It's
funny.
the lucky unlucky.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
We loved, when we first picked up this book and read it, that was the draw.
Oh, it was a great
That's the draw.
elevator pitch. And I
Yeah.
just thought this sounds really cool. And he showed me kind of a draft of, and he had been developing it originally. I think he had thought of it as being a short film. And, those are hard things to get off the ground, and
For
a
sure.
lot of people having to be involved. And I thought, oh, this would be really cool if we did this as a comic together. So that kind of got things going again. So we'll get there eventually, but with the book I'm doing right now, this is the reason that the person it's dedicated to is Scott and the designer we work with, David Perks, because if Scott hadn't suggested this idea, I don't know what I would be doing with art right now. I like to think that I would have made my way back to it, but he certainly fast-tracked that by offering me an opportunity to collaborate and do
Sure,
something
yeah.
together.
Yeah, it's that. Sometimes it's inspiration.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's instigation.
Yeah,
Somebody just coming in with that little
Yeah.
nudge.
I feel really grateful that
Well,
he
that's
presented
really,
me that opportunity.
that's really healthy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really healthy that the realization of those moments.
Yeah.
Right, because it sort of allows you to be really receptive to that.
Right.
There's always that reticence.
Mm.
Right, there's always that reticence
Yeah.
when somebody comes up to you to tell you about their
Yeah.
elevator pitch.
Right.
And well, I know you do this, so I got my brother draws better than you. Those things, but
Yeah.
he's too busy. So you get those things.
Yeah.
But I'd be interested if anybody that's in the following the stream right now, if you have those reticence moments about being approached by somebody, because I think all of us do.
Yeah.
I think that. Even taking on projects like the one I described earlier, the scavenger hunt
Oh yeah.
project.
Yeah.
That's a daunting thing if you look at it as 100 things.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if you look at it as today's thing,
Right.
tomorrow's thing,
Yes.
this week's thing,
Yeah.
however you can parcel that,
Right. Yeah.
I think that's a major thing that keeps creators from finishing projects.
Yes.
Is
Definitely.
you look at the end of the road.
Yeah.
And then you're running to get there.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes you'll stumble along the way. All kinds of metaphors here.
Yeah.
You know, but just getting to the end of the road becomes more and more of a daunting task when you evaluate the road as opposed to just picking a foot up, right?
Yeah. Very much so.
So I mean, good for you and good for Scott, really.
Yeah.
For,
Oh, yeah.
for kicking that
Yeah.
the can over and spilling the fire out, because really.
Yeah.
Now you've got your new book.
Yes. Yeah.
How many pages?
So it's 152 pages. It's the equivalent of 4 issues of comic.
I'm so,
Oh,
I'm
sure,
so
yeah.
sorry to interrupt this point.
Yeah, no
But
problem.
Rachel just the guidance of the innocent comment, right? But then she says, my favorite comment of all time. I was kind of bored, so I called you. That's instigation. Oh, really?
Wow. Yeah.
Okay, so this project.
Okay.
How many
Yeah.
pages?
So it's 152 pages. So that's
what are you, crazy?
Yeah, all the back matter and stuff. So it's the equivalent of 4 issues. There are a couple short stories in the back. I wanted to thank you again for the beautiful pinup that you did for the back as well. We got a few pinups in there, yeah, it's a somewhat complete story arc.
Volume 1.
Volume 1. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I can tell this is, I think, a bit of a scoop for for our live stream.
As if I'm here, folks.
But the volume 2 is done.
Great.
Yeah. So I still have to do all the design work and the
How many
back
pages is
matter.
that one?
That one's the same.
What are you,
same work.
blockers?
Yeah. It was this. I can tell you about how this happened. It was very weird how it all came together. I think there were a lot of little bits that kind of aligned themselves. I started working on it just before, I guess, what would it be? About 6 months before the pandemic hit. I had this idea that things had gone really well with Lucky and Lucky. I was really happy with that book.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like it was the best book I had drawn. Loved Scott's story. We were working on volume 2 of that, which isn't out yet, but there will be more Lucky and Lucky in the future. And I had got to the point where I thought, I really want to write something again now. It's, I'd shaken off that was, I think, the boon that Scott gave me, is that, he's very easy to work with. Like, we had a really good connection. So we had lots of really good chats about, like, what he would say, what do you think of this? And get some feedback from me. It's his story for sure. And, all the dialogue and all the characters, but we really had a lot of, like, if I wanted to draw a particular thing, I could be like, can we kind of, like, what if we show that this way? He was really open to that. But it took a lot of the pressure off for the drawing part, or for the writing part, that I could just focus on drawing. I knew there was going to be a solid story. I knew there was going to be solid dialogue, but it got to that point where I thought I'd really like to do the whole package again, really write something.
What kind of script did he do? Was there direction for the panels, or no? Or is it just...
Yes, he actually did breakdowns
okay.
for the first issue. But that was sort of an interesting learning experience for both of us, because I never worked from full script before. I had worked with Trevor Jameson, who I mentioned before. We did a one-shot together. It was supposed to be a 3-issue series.
That's how it happens. It happens a lot.
Yeah. But he had basically written dialogue. There was dialogue, basic stage directions. Scott's script was similar to that, but he had done breakdowns. And when we started looking at it, I said, this is going to be hard for me to get into your headspace. Mm-hmm. Is it okay if I take a second pass on the breakdowns? So every panel that he put in the background, in the breakdown, if I remember correctly, is in the book. I just added a bunch of stuff, like transitional kind of things. So I think we added about 12 pages to the length, because I like more decompressed kind of storytelling.
Is that per issue or is that overall?
Just for this issue. So it was 20 page script. It ended up being 32 pages. So that's maybe excessive, but
artists,
but like all of Scott's panels are in there. Like all his breakdowns actually did make it to that final product. So we switched with I'm working on issue 3 right now.
Great.
2 isn't out yet. 2 is done as far as pencils and inks are concerned. Colors are still left to be done, which is done by Aaron Elston. But we switched after that experience just to, I started doing the breakdowns because we thought, it's going to be faster.
Sure.
And
well, you've also already established a dialogue
exactly
between each other in
Yeah.
the sense of here's the textuality of it,
right.
and you go responsively. Here's the
Yeah.
visual elements of it.
Yeah.
And of course, because of that working relationship, he has the ability to say to you, could you noodle in some of this?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's jazz. It's
Exactly,
I've always thought that
yeah.
a lot of engagement on projects like this,
Yeah.
it's jazz.
That's a
It's somebody
really good analogy. Yeah.
Establishes the foundation of the rhythm, and
Yeah.
then somebody else starts putting those little bits on top.
Right. Yeah.
And it's the back and forth, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's nice that we do have the luxury of like meeting in person to talk about this, because a lot
sure.
of it, I would say, like a lot of the story work that, might be part of a full script, Scott delivered to me verbally, like we had in conversations.
Mm-hmm.
It's still there. Like you say, it's more about that dialogue
Yeah.
that's happening in real life rather than being recorded on the page. Yeah.
It's good. I mean, that's good and the fact that you guys have been able to progress further with it.
Yeah.
You cited before that you worked on a project with somebody who was intended to be this larger piece.
Yeah, that was my fault.
And it ends up being smaller. Those things happen to everybody along the way.
Yeah.
Rachel says that her joy is the development of the Canadian creators, and the inspiration of others works both ways, which is really poignant. I mean, that's on the button for sure. Because if you've got one person who's dragging heel, project's done. Whether it's you or the other person.
Oh, sure, yeah, that's true.
And then there's always there's those dynamics that don't work. That just don't work.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There's those, whether it's interpersonal or if it's different approach.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
There's a lot to be said for those things.
Yeah.
Okay. So, the most difficult title in the world for me to say sometimes.
Yes.
It's not. It really isn't. It really isn't. My problem is just with my brain set and trying to remember names.
Yeah.
And your title is 2 names, and I'm like, okay,
it is. It's 2 names.
Murgatroyd and Nepenthe.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. But I have to sit down for a second and go. And
My-
it's only because of how my brain works.
My nightmare is
it's
that
a great title.
anybody who hears about the book is going to not know what to type in to their search engine to
I think they're going to type Murgatroyd.
Hopefully, yeah.
No, I
It'll
think
show
they're going
up.
to type Murgatroyd.
Yeah.
And because you've got that one recognizable.
Yeah.
Nepenthe might be hard for some people,
That's true.
but the first part of your title there is an easily recognizable
That's true.
and rememberable name.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Because most people will do
Heavens to Murgatroyd.
Heavens to Murgatroyd. Even.
Yeah.
Snagglepuss. You gotta love
Yeah.
some Snagglepuss.
Yeah.
You gotta,
Yeah.
Yeah. It's because that's the best. But of course, it's unrelated to the story. But
Yeah.
Okay. So, do you want to spill the beans about
Sure.
where the just a rough what the new piece is based on, or not so much based on? I'm sorry, but what the gist of it is.
Sure. Yeah.
The elevator pitch. That's what I'm.
This one's a hard one to do an elevator pitch.
Yeah,
That's the benefit
yeah.
to Lucky and Lucky. It has a really good elevator pitch. I would say with this one, there are a couple ways to look at it. One is that I really thought about this as it progressed as being like a comic strip, where each kind of chapter of it, almost in the first book, each chapter is 4 pages. So I was thinking of these almost like, I think Scott McCloud in Understanding Comics uses the term meta panel, that a page is like a meta panel, where it's like, well, I've got 4 pages, but it's like a comic strip, except instead of 4 panels, I have 4 pages.
Sure.
And the story just kind of starts because I was thinking from this comic strip perspective, I've been thinking a lot about the idea that comic strips are we think about stories having a beginning, middle, and end, but comic strips are really all middle.
Mm-hmm.
That, you look at something like Peanuts that ran for 50 years and nobody cares about the first.
Charlie Brown being born.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's the end? Where does it end?
I would actually
Yeah.
counterpoint that. I think
Yeah.
all stories start in the
Right.
middle,
Yeah.
right? I think that all, like Memento,
Mm.
that movie starts with a guy driving in a car, and he doesn't recognize where he is in the moment. Neither do we. We have to figure it out together.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
When when a lyricist was writing words for a song,
Right.
they're abstractly establishing this relationship that has woes or highs or whatever
Right,
it is, or it's describing the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, whatever it is.
Sure.
But they don't start with, on the day I was born.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a
So
good
I mean,
point.
I think most stories do that.
Yeah.
And
So
some of the successful ones, you don't realize they're doing it.
no, that's true. Yeah. Yeah. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect was I wanted to build, and this is maybe less for the reader's perspective, but more from like, how was I going to make this thing work?
Yeah.
A lot of it was, what can I draw and write within the way my life is working right now? So a lot of school and family commitments.
Mhm.
Still wanted to keep some development going on Lucky Unlucky at the same time. And I came up with this idea of, I had been doing these little drawings directly in ink of different creatures and characters. And I thought, what if I draw it like that? I am going to not pencil or script this. I'm just going to draw it. Yeah. And one of the weirdest aspects to me is that I made myself up like a 9-panel template grid. And I would rule all the pages before starting with the boxes. I would just throw it on a light board and draw the boxes based on how I thought the rhythm of a chapter would go.
So you've got a basic plot and a rhythmic approach to the pages, but then when it comes to the composition elements that make up all the scenes and all the boxes, nothing. It's stream of consciousness.
What happens
go.
next? Yeah.
There you go.
Where are these characters at? So the last ingredient thrown on top of that is, I've been a David Bowie fan for a really long time. And one of the things
Rachel says that's the chaos of life.
yeah. The era that I'm most attracted to with Bowie stuff is the Berlin trilogy, where he worked with Brian Eno.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd read a bunch of stuff about them using these cards, the oblique strategies that Brian Eno had come up with with another artist called Peter Schmidt. Are you familiar with them? Yeah. So I just thought, I think this is so cool, where you have a card, it gives you some kind of obscure advice of how to approach your artistic problem. For people in the stream, there's online implementations you can use, or you can get like a physical deck of these cards. And I thought, what would happen if every chapter used a different prompt from the oblique strategies? That at some point in making the chapter, I drew it and I had to do whatever it said.
One of the people that's been in our stream today, Dee Dee, she has
a
bag where she's written on hundreds of little pieces of paper.
Awesome.
A word.
Yeah.
A prompt.
Right.
And so during her streams.
Yeah.
On Monday and Wednesday mornings.
Right.
On Monday and Wednesday mornings during Dee Dee's stream. Does anybody want me to pull 3 prompts out?
Awesome.
The page I posted today, unicorn, mermaid, fence, is from.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And but it's because it's just the same as the 1-page idea.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But sometimes those instigators really need to be available for you. And even the instigation, like it's the same principle before you even get to your pulling a card thing and following that notion.
Yes.
You've already started it because you drew panels without any intended image.
Right. Yes.
And you're pacing the story and having to fit the image to the pace.
Right. Yeah.
Which is a very different idea. It's very commendable. It's a very different idea.
Thank you.
A lot of people wouldn't be able to do that because to them it would be too confining.
Yeah. I'm nervous even to tell people about this at times because I hope people don't notice. I hope people, when they read it, don't realize that the panels, the boxes were there first before.
They wouldn't know. People wouldn't know, honestly, unless you've got really arbitrary things like that. So then, okay. And each of those-
Yeah.
because
Need to-
not, you have your character stall words for panels because you have to.
Right.
Yeah, unless you're doing something that ridiculous.
It
you know.
it definitely, one thing I think I realized.
Oh, Rachel just did one: broccoli, pumpkin, earth.
Yes.
There's a whole thing about the broccoli. It was written down in Bocelli. I think it was written down.
Oh, okay.
And maybe it meant to be Andre Bocelli, or maybe it meant to be broccoli. But Rachel looked up Brocelli, and she's like, I can't find anything on that. I don't know broccoli, which is great.
That's
which is
hilarious.
really great.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely doing this made me wonder why I was always so stressed about doing breakdowns when I was doing them.
Yeah.
Because you suddenly realize, oh, like there's a lot more flexibility to the story. I don't feel, when I read the pages, I often forget that I drew the boxes first at this point. And it, that wouldn't work as easily for something like Lucky Unlucky, where there's specific story beats that are pre-established and we're trying to hit certain dialogue at certain points. But it certainly takes the pressure off going into doing breakdowns for those, because I can't go too far off if I have random panels and it's working relatively well. So,
well, we did a talk together at Words Festival. It's Words Festival in London is it's a writers festival. It's a whole thing about writers and publishers and speakers on specific topics. And so yourself, myself, and another creator in London, Deanna Tamblin, we talked about our approaches.
Yeah.
And you had some structured layout from Scott.
Yeah.
At the time was the one that I think you related to.
Right.
And then Deanna was talking about in her project, she has everything preset.
Right. Yeah.
Which is really tight.
Yeah.
Right. And then, of course, on the opposite side of the chaos and action here, but I don't. Yeah. Which one's Rutzman? The guy waving his arms around his head, that lunatic. But it's interesting because whatever approach that anybody takes, and maybe some of the people that might watch this stream will get some insight and get some ideas about if they're working in a certain way and it's not working, it's not fulfilling for them.
Yeah.
Then maybe considering some options like, I got a rough plot, I'm going to break down the pacing of it. And pacing in comics is the more small panels you got, the faster it goes. The more large panels you got, the slower it goes. The bigger the panel, the more intention. The smaller the panel, the more you move along.
Yeah.
And it's the fastest way I can describe it.
Yeah.
And but it's that's the rhythm, that's the tone, that's the notes of the page. Oh, Didi's gonna head out. She says it was really nice meeting you again.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, she's great.
That's awesome.
So maybe that'll help somebody else.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
And maybe there'll be some benefit of that. So you've got so the book is all set. You've secretly got another one in the pocket.
Yeah.
And nobody knows that yet. Hot gossip. So where's it available for people? I put up a thing today.
Yeah, awesome. So right now we're doing pre-orders over on Crowdfunder. So the address for that is Crowdfunder, which is literally the word Crowdfunder, but without the E at the end. CROWDFUNDR.
I put it in the post today for Facebook and for Instagram. It's the second page of the two posts I put out. I put out
awesome.
Your promotional page.
That's great. And then just /Murgatroyd. And you can hop on there. There's a digital edition for $10. There's the paperback and the digital together for $25 plus shipping. And we do local pickup, which will just be at Alameda Comics and Games here in London. And then if you want a drawing of one of the characters, there's an option for that as well, along with the book and the digital.
Rachel's responded to, again, if you need a physical representation of where to look for the book, it's on Instagram and Facebook post for today. Rachel said those prompts lead the direction of the dialect, like the drawings, the dialogue, the drawings. She's not sure. She said she meant dialogue. It came out dialect. If you've drawn a blank, if you have if you have drawn a blank previously, you can release the stream of thought and creativity, because you've structured it
Yeah.
in those panels
Yeah, that's true.
along that plot.
That's true. There's a safety net there.
Well, but like she
Yeah.
says, you've already invested some work
Yeah.
into.
Right.
You've already
That's a
put
good
down
point.
the foundation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Rachel says she's definitely going to follow up.
Oh, awesome. That's good.
But you've already put down a foundation of this is where I need to go. This is
Yeah.
what I need to follow through
Yeah.
with. It's a challenge for a lot of people. That
That's a really good point, actually, because as strange as it sounds, that I would always, with each chapter, I would feel this sense of accomplishment, even though it's just a bunch of empty boxes.
Mhm.
It's like you're seeing, here's 4 pages of comic. And just letting go of that perfectionism of, even though I'm not on a deadline, thinking about that part of comics history, that you're working for a newspaper or there's an issue coming out this month, you've got to, something has to be in the boxes.
sure.
And you can't, at a certain point, you can't be that precious about what's in the boxes.
Well, sometimes it just takes. So Winsor McCay.
Yeah.
Winsor McCay, who did the Adventures of Little Nemo and Slumber
Right.
Cave,
Yeah.
amongst a great deal of other things. He would say one thing. Now, he wants to draw pillars.
Right.
He wants to draw cannonballs. Honestly, that
Yeah.
one thing.
Wow. Yeah.
And he would take these characters of Nemo and this the princess and Pip, and that's the next gamut he's going to run them through.
Right. Yeah.
Is as the city of ice is melting and everything is subsiding,
Right.
then pirates are shooting cannonballs across the water at them, and by the time we're 4 pages along, they're swimming in the ocean,
Right.
and the
Yeah.
pirate ship is picking them up.
Right.
And over the course of those 4 pages, the ship got closer, the ice melted more. You know, there were polar bears going by on ice flows. That was what the 3rd page was. You know what I mean?
Wow,
It's just
yeah.
this randomness of it.
Yeah.
But that guy was an absolute master of storytelling,
Yeah.
and the worst letterer in comic history. one of the greatest illustrators in the history of comics. 1905,
Wow.
Winsor
Yeah.
McCay
Yeah.
set the tone.
Yeah.
In all of his lettering, he would write the dialogue, and he would squeeze that box
Yeah.
as tightly as he
Yeah.
could around
Oh my
dialogue.
gosh, it is funny to think about that.
Yeah.
Remember
And just
seeing
'cause he didn't want to
Gertie
interfere
the
with art.
dinosaur when I was a kid, the animation
Yeah.
he did where he walks up on her head and
First public animation.
wow,
That's the first, and he'd do it live.
that's amazing.
So he'd be on stage, and
Yeah.
he'd throw a rock in the air, and
Yeah.
Gertie went because he thought
Amazing.
dinosaurs ate rocks.
And
I don't
yet-
know.
And yet lettering like that.
Shamefully, I have somewhat poo-pooed comics as lesser,
Oh,
but this has certainly retrained my thinking. We say thinking, not thinking.
Oh, perfect.
That's genius. Oh, the things that you will learn. That's Rachel saying that. It's a commonality, I think,
Yeah.
in Western society.
Yeah.
To think of sequential media in general.
Yes.
That's a term that comic people tend to hate, by
Right.
the way.
Yeah.
Sequential media.
It bothers me a little too, but
Because there's this association from in the industry is pretentiousness,
right.
right?
Yeah.
Of academic.
Yeah.
And there's an association outside the industry as egalitarianism.
Right.
Right. But the reality is that sequential medium covers storyboarding films,
Sure.
comics,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Animations, right? All of
Yeah.
these things where the cartoonists, like periodical pieces,
Yeah.
what did you, strips?
Yeah.
Strips. They're all in that blanket.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
sequential media works.
Yeah. Totally.
But there's an association in Western society of it being driven.
Yeah.
And that you cannot elevate it
Right.
to in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Or it can't be looked at as something that is can present more lofty ideas or more grand ideas.
Sure. Yeah.
Whereas in other parts of the world, in Europe and most specifically in Asia,
Oh yeah.
everybody and their uncle reads it on
Right.
the subway. Everybody,
It's just accepted.
it's as common as newspapers,
Right. Yeah.
which is a hard thing for people to dial into.
Yeah.
Gary Hodges has joined us. Hi, Gary. You've got to see Gary's work.
Oh, great.
GBSM. He's got a new book coming out. His
Oh,
third
cool.
book. And really excited. Really fantastic artist and writer.
Awesome. I'll have to
I'll
look that.
have to
info
show
about
you.
that.
I'll have to show you. His
Yeah,
work
I'd love to see
because
it.
I'm really taken by it.
That's awesome.
But I'm quite excited for his third
Very cool.
his third offing because the
Nice.
first two were so strong.
Yeah.
It's hard to produce a book.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Like
It is. Yeah, it is.
and once you get on that train,
Mhm.
and I always say that finishing projects is discipline.
Yeah.
You know, and there's great people that have lofty ambitions and they have all these ideas and they have all these plans. I'm going to do the 7-page series
Yeah.
about this surfer with water powers. And, you know, let me tell you the whole thing, but they never write it down.
Yeah.
And if they do write it down, it has zero structure. It's just, right? So they got a typewriter and
Right.
maybe some, I don't know, endorphins,
Yeah.
you know, amphetamines. But it's not there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe in the next stage they get it there. But there's always these different roadblocks along the way for a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
externally to this crazy,
Yeah.
you know, direction.
Yeah.
I think it is the same way for all learn.
Yeah.
I really do. And
Yeah.
I think that in order to be at a point where you say, I've done this much material, has an awful lot to do with saying, I've sat down this much. Like
Yeah.
Dee Dee says, put
Absolutely.
my butt in the seat,
Absolutely.
99%.
Yeah.
And that's a huge thing to say. And how do you direct people with that advice? Like, how would you do it? Because I'm still at a loss for it.
Yeah, I think that's all very, very true. And I think that's really kind of the core struggle. A big difference for me came shortly before I started on this project. I read a book called The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. I don't know if you've...
Nothing on it. No.
I'd recommend it if anybody check it out. It's very much the same idea that you've talked about. His main thesis in it is that all creative people experience resistance.
Mhm.
He kind of maps out what is this resistance, what is this force we're fighting against to get our work done. And his antidote to resistance is to be a professional, which he doesn't mean in a literal sense of like, this is your job now,
No.
but the same way that you would approach your job, that, he kind of starts out with things like, you don't take a sick day every day you're, feeling a little under the weather. Obviously, if you are sick, you take a day off, but, you show up, you are there on time, you do it when you don't feel like doing it because you need to do it. A lot of that I think this is kind of generic self-help kind of stuff, this particular point, but this idea that comes up that you mentioned of discipline,
Mhm.
A lot of self-help stuff will talk about how discipline is greater than motivation. And I think that's really true. And I thought about that because working with students, it's a similar thing.
Yeah.
If you wait until you're motivated, what that means is like doing, how I think about it is waiting for motivation is waiting until you want to do it or trying to find a way to want to do it.
Yeah.
Discipline means doing things you don't want to do because they're still worthwhile and of value to you. And I think that, getting your butt in the chair. Pressfield has another book, and the title of it is "Put Your Ass Where Your Heart Wants to Be," which I think is really good advice.
A couple of my kids were reading a book called The Art of Not Giving Up.
All right, yeah.
And I'm like, hey, you sold that in a bookstore? Yeah. Oh my goodness, there's a bad word about it.
Right.
There's something to. I'm a really big proponent of the allocation of the time you need.
Right.
And what I mean by that is, I'm a psychotic, timetable wise, for how I work.
Right.
And I'm not talking about it's a psycho who's constant. That's just all he does ever is work.
Right.
I don't. I live.
Yeah.
But what I mean by that is the speed I work at and the expediency of connectedness to the craziness.
Yeah.
And other people take X amount of time. They need X amount of time for execution of an idea, execution of a page, execution of a project.
Yeah.
And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that neither one is better than the other.
Right.
Because maybe the person who works really fast should slow the hell down.
Sure.
and put a little bit more time into what they're doing.
Right.
What could they do then?
Yeah.
And maybe and maybe the person that takes a X amount of time to do something should speed the hell up.
It's
but who's to say?
it's
what,
the George Martin versus Stephen King problem.
oh yeah,
Right? Everybody's like, get the next book out versus you could have edited that one a little bit more.
You
But
could have edited that book for 5 years.
yeah.
Yeah, George Martin. I said to somebody recently that Rachel says love it. I said to somebody recently that like I can't wait till he gets to book 7, and I said he's on 5.
Oh my gosh.
And they went, I know, but he's on 5. Just enjoy the 5
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it takes 10 years on a book.
Yeah.
And
That's just what it is.
he's 70.
Yeah.
He's on 5.
Yeah.
You know, and allow yourself that.
Yeah.
Like some
Yeah.
books don't have finishes, right?
Right.
Alison Borchardt,
Mm.
or Alice Borchardt, I'm so sorry. Older sister of Anne Rice.
Okay.
Alice Borchardt wrote this fantastic fantasy series about the Silver Wolf,
Oh wow.
Argent, the shapeshifter. He's half wolf, he's half man, he's immortal, European history. And at one point, one of his children, who ends up being Lancelot du Lac, and an adopted child that he rescued from a burnt village of the dragon, one of the dragon tribe of the 12 Celtic tribes of Britain. Real logic leaps. But who's the young queen to be? Guinevere. He raises her with his cub because, of course, his family is half wolf, half human. And it's this whole epic, beautiful thing based on her first 3 books about the wolf itself. And then this was now about a completely different take on the Arthurian mythology from the perspective of Guinevere,
Yeah.
the Celt, right? First book, wonderful. Second book, holy cow, it got better.
Yeah.
She passes away.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Never at the end of that. What? Yeah.
That's
And
life. Yeah.
that's what happens, right?
Yeah.
But Dan, I can't remember his last name. He was a military medic in Afghanistan, and he started writing this series about David and his mighty men. And first book's Covenant of War, and then whatever war. These books are amazing. And first book's great. Second book's great. He's not getting the sales because it's a Christian-based book, and it's a really diminished market.
Sure.
He switches to digital. I'm out.
Oh no.
I can't. It's not the same. I don't want to read a robot. It's challenging. Sometimes we got to do what we got to do. But even finishing a project is a big deal, and whatever method you can do to do that, that's the important part.
Yeah.
There's a great deal of people that I've met online, and it's a real gift to be able to talk to all these people that have similar interests of the art of making.
Yeah. And
it's an interesting, paradigm for sure.
Yeah.
That this other world of everybody's sort of in the same boat, but rowing with completely different paddles.
Yeah.
And maybe in completely different directions.
Right. Yeah.
But we're all, doing our own thing. And so you meet an awful lot of perspectives, and you meet an awful lot of approaches.
Yes.
And there's no hard, fast rule of what works.
I think that's, you have to figure out what works for you. Yeah. Nobody can, because we could outline 2 completely different ways that we approach things, or even different ways that we've used in the past. And they might be getting results for us and just sabotage someone else completely if they tried to follow, someone else's steps through.
Yeah. You can't be, Bill can't be Bob.
No.
Bob can't be Betty. They're all different people,
Yeah.
Rachel says, then there are some people who attempt the sequel to a great classic, these incredibly heavy objective goals. See, a little bit of belief is okay though, right?
Yeah.
And then at the same time, within know your limit, know your artistic journey, know your artistic reality. There's a lot of people I find that say, I'm this person.
Yeah.
I can do these things. I do these really well.
Right.
And they've been saying the same thing about the exact same thing for an unspecified amount of time.
Right.
And okay.
Yeah.
I've got no judgment on that for the specific person per se,
Sure.
but I think that they might want to reevaluate that internal critical self-judgment,
Sure. Yeah.
because you're not going to follow through on your objectives if you're just comfortably stopped and rest on that plateau. You're not going to get up the mountain.
Right.
That you think you're getting it up. You're not. You're on the, and you can't, there's no point. And you can't sort of say, prod people with a pitchfork as you get up the mountain, because it never going to work. I do it this way, do it like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
Drugs.
so
I don't know what people do. I knew one guy. I can only pay when I'm high.
Oh, jeez.
That
sounds awful.
I got nothing for that, man. I got nothing for that. Okay, you do you. Enjoy. That's a pretty solid crutch.
Yeah.
But whatever works, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the new book, you've got it on Crowdfunder.
Yeah.
And it's release.
So
We're in the process of funding now. When's that go to?
it got extended. It was going to go till mid-April, but Crowdfunder is doing a Canadian Creator Spotlight. So they reached out to me and said, hey, would you like to keep your campaign running? And we're going to try to spotlight some Canadian creators through May. So it's going all the way till May 31st.
Okay.
But I'm going to try to finalize kind of our numbers mid-May and send it to print at that point. So hopefully local delivery will be sometime in June.
Yeah.
And mailing out at the same time. So by July for sure is kind of what we're targeting at this point for everybody getting their books in hand.
That's not bad. That's not bad. Sometimes you get these really protracted periods and you'll get it in November.
Yeah. So the print files are ready to go. I'm going to do like a final proof on them, but if we had to print today, we could do it.
Nice.
Everything's locked in. And
is Crowdfunder a new,
relatively
new thing?
I believe so. It's how it came onto my radar is I've been a big fan of Jay Stevens' work for a really long time, and his publisher Michelle Vrana restarted Black Eye Books, which I don't know if you remember Black Eye from way back in the 90s.
Back.
So Black Eye is back, and they've been using it quite a bit, and I've had the great fortune to interview Michelle a couple times, and he spoke really highly of kind of the results they were able to get through that.
Good,
and just it's a Canadian company, which is really nice. I think they're based in Vancouver.
Nice.
So I actually started on Fundraiser, which is their sister site, but apparently that one is Crowdfunder is the more creator focused one. So they were able to migrate me over. Oh, good. Which is really nice of them. They've been awesome. It's been really a great experience so far.
There's so many different platforms out there. Yeah. Rachel says thank you for in the invitation to the conversation. Thank you.
Oh, thank you
to you and to everybody that's taken part in the conversation today, guys. It's we don't get to see each other enough.
No, it's true.
Busy.
This has been really fun.
And a global pandemic.
Yes, indeed. And I wanted to say thanks again, because the first 4 pages of this book appeared in New Apartments number 14.
Isn't that something?
That was the first kind of showing of these characters.
That's fun.
So thanks for giving them their first little
entry
into the world.
My whole thing with RP Comics is that it was a company by error, a company by the inability to say no, maybe, or the whole point of Runciman Press, which is its real parent title. Yeah. Was just we found three books in a drawer and let's publish. Yeah. Why are these not published? My wife said. So and then as soon as I built up a couple dollars from my few books is when I said, all right, let's open it up. What's the best way to help others to do this? Because I don't need this to make a living from. Right. Because I make a living. Right. But how can we capitalize on this? Because helping others, of course, would help me having a sense of community. But but it would also maybe give other people the instigation to go and pursue their objective interest, right? And so that's why we started doing that. Yeah. And then we just didn't expect it to go on to 70 books. Wow. Yeah, that's 70 amazing. Something else. Something. I don't. Yeah. I actually stopped counting. Wow. At a point, only because it just felt a little. Well, I'm doing this. And the end of the day, it's not about that. It's at the
Yeah.
end of the day, it's about, like you said, sometimes 4 pages in a thing.
Yeah.
And create a monster.
Yeah. Well.
Not at all.
Yeah. No.
Thanks for hanging out. Thanks to everybody
Thank
who's
you.
come and joined
Thanks, everybody. This has been so fun.
Rachel says, I am of a mind to call C the mobile pandemic spurred many to new or dormant creativity and gave us the time to explore those venues. Oh, that's
True.
very nice of you, Rachel. I don't know about that. I think I'm barely restrained. What is it? Barely inhibited chaos or something. What did we say that was earlier? Yeah, it's important that you're doing these books. It is
Thank you.
because it
Yeah.
gives you that sense of well-being and accomplishment, gets your ideas out there, and gives people those moments.
That's really nice to hear. Yeah,
Thanks for hanging out.
Thank you.
Thanks to everybody that came and joined us. I think we're gonna call it a day today.
Yeah,
And
sounds good.
I'll be back tomorrow, 2:00. Anybody wants to jump in again? And in the meantime, I've got to finish this page, which is, I don't remember what this page is about. It is, good heavens, Christopher. It is a writer. I know that much. It is a page about an aspiring paperback writer like the song. That's the suggestion
Nice.
from a suggested person is Anonymous. Yeah.
That's great.
Secret twice. Yeah, so I'll get that done for tomorrow. And in the meantime, I hope everybody keeps going on what they're doing. Rachel says all the best in your venture.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, I hope everybody keeps on whatever path they're doing for their creation. I'm really interested to see whatever that is. So always feel free to share that with me. If you have one-page ideas, you know where I am. In the meantime, have a great day, everybody. Thanks a lot. Bye for now.